Lily was secretly relieved that Lucas had agreed to go with her. If he hadn't offered, she would have turned down the meeting in a heartbeat. Negotiating over WhatsApp was one thing, but talking face-to-face? She'd freeze up, unable to utter a single word. Still, wasn't him wearing sunglasses a little over the top? Watching him strut around, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was off about him. An artist like me has an assistant, she asked, suddenly bewildered. For a painter at your level? An assistant is perfectly normal, Lucas explained patiently. Chloe started as Aaron's assistant, remember? You don't do comics, but tons of artists in the industry here and overseas have whole teams, people for rough drafts, for storyboards. Some of them have a whole busload of people working for them. Lily nodded, stunned. She didn't quite get it, but it sounded impressive. After summoning both grandmothers to watch the kids, they finally had a chance to escape. Just as they stepped out of the building, Lily closed her eyes and took 2 deep breaths of fresh air, ready to skip out into the world, when Lucas pulled her back. You barely ate anything this morning. Here. He held out a small, cellophane-wrapped candy. Eat this. Oh. Lucas unwrapped the green apple hard candy and popped it in her mouth, then took her hand, satisfied. The sweet and sour flavor spread across her tongue, and Lily's eyes crinkled into a smile, but then she paused. If it weren't for the long break during her pregnancy, she would have taken the gesture for granted. Ever since she had fainted from hypoglycemia that one time, Lucas had silently, meticulously kept up this habit. For 3 years. That meant for 3 years, he'd been quietly monitoring whether she was eating properly, right down to making sure she had enough sugar each day. It was so consistent that she'd completely stopped worrying about her blood sugar. You don't have to be so careful anymore, Lily murmured, leaning her head on his shoulder and clinging to him like a koala. It's been so long. Your only job is to open your mouth and eat. You don't have to think about it, Lucas said. He looked around for a trash can, found none, and stuffed the candy wrapper into his pocket. His voice dropped, suddenly serious. This is my job. I'll be watching out for you for the rest of our lives. Lily didn't say anything else, just tightened her grip on his arm. At 10 in the morning, they arrived at the reception area of Dauntless Interactive. They sat side by side at a dark, solid wood table. In the center, a vase of jasmine flowers bloomed vibrantly, tiny water droplets still clinging to the petals. Lily was still taking deep, calming breaths when Lucas had already formed a preliminary judgment of the company. They clearly valued Lily's talent. At the very least, they were serious about negotiating. Even though their games are popular, this company doesn't seem as big as yours, Lily whispered, leaning close to his ear. It took Lucas a second to realize she was right. It had never occurred to him that Polaris Interactive had become such a behemoth in the industry that they could look down on a company like this. Back when they were just a tiny studio, he'd never dreamed this day would come. Despite the uncharacteristically humble thought, he adjusted his sunglasses and let out a cool, confident huff. Of course not. Do you know who your husband is? Lily lowered her head, fiddling with her fingers as a secret smile played on her lips. My husband is the greatest, she said, her voice soft with pride. The words were music to his ears. It took every ounce of his strength to keep his grin from splitting his face as he turned away, maintaining his nonchalant expression. He thought for a moment, then decided to give her a few last-minute instructions. Don't let them know what your bottom line is. Just close your eyes and shoot for the stars. This is a negotiation, after all. And if you get stuck on a question, just change the subject or tell them you need to think about it and get back to them. Okay, you got to do this on your own, got it? Right now, I'm just your poor, silent assistant. My only job is to provide a +10 charisma buff so you can actually open your mouth. Don't expect me to jump in. From the start, he'd never intended to take over. Lily was a mother of 2 now. She couldn't let her social anxiety rule her life. Whatever scars the past had left on her, he could heal them, slowly. She was only 22. The past she didn't want to remember was just a few short years, a closed chapter. Sooner or later, the time they had spent together would surpass her current age. 10 years, 20 years. He had all the time in the world to help her get better. I'll do my best, she said, nodding with fierce determination. You don't have to talk to your husband like that, you know. A faint blush crept up Lily's cheeks. She glanced at her phone, saw it was almost time for their appointment, and took another series of deep breaths. It's okay, she muttered to herself. Don't be nervous. There are other companies willing to talk. Lucas blinked. Was she seriously trying to calm herself down like that? Probably not the best idea to remind yourself you have a way out, he said softly. Back in college, whenever I started debating whether or not to skip a lecture, you could bet your tuition I wasn't showing up to that lecture. Lily realized she'd been muttering aloud and pressed her lips together, nodding in embarrassment. All right, let's do a quick warm-up, Lucas said, turning to face her. Ms. Thompson, what is your ultimate professional goal? Lily's voice was firm. I want to become the most famous artist in the country. I had no idea your ambitions were so grand, Lucas said, genuinely surprised. Just then, she lowered her head and mumbled, fiddling with her fingers again. And then, I'll come help you at your company. Lucas stared at her for a moment. Well then, I'd better hurry up and make Polaris big enough to house a legend like you. Just as he finished speaking, the glass door to the reception area swung open. A young woman with her hair in a ponytail and wearing large, black-framed glasses walked in, looking annoyed and muttering into her phone. Mom, can you please stop trying to set me up on dates? I'm making 6 figures. I don't need a boyfriend. Stop yelling, Mom. Stop yelling. I have to go to work by. After hanging up, she finally noticed the 2 people sitting at the table. The atmosphere turned awkward. After a long silence, the woman offered a sheepish smile. Oh, you're here so early. Lily, flustered, could only manage a small nod. The woman sat down across from them, her gaze sweeping over the sunglass-wearing Lucas before landing on Lily. Her expression immediately brightened. Your Lillipad? The woman's voice was filled with excitement. I can't believe the artist I've been working with for so long is so beautiful in person. Lily was taken aback. You are. She remembered taking on quite a few commissions from this company before her pregnancy, but all their communication had been online. She'd never met any of them. I'm Amuro's girlfriend. I used to be your main contact. The ponytailed woman cleared her throat. You could just call me Lynn. Lucas had a fight to keep from laughing. So this is how the otaku communicate? I love it. And you are? Lynn asked, looking at him curiously. I'm her assistant and legal counsel, Lucas said, nodding towards Lily. Oh, just a little assistant, Lynn thought, dismissing him and turning her attention back to Lily. The name clicked for Lily. In all the years she'd been doing commercial work, Lynn was the only client who had ever paid the final installment before she had even submitted the finished art. Realizing they weren't total strangers made the rest of the conversation much easier. The company had already decided on their character rollout for the next 2 years, and they wanted Lily to illustrate a portion of them. The terms were simple. She would submit her work on a schedule, no need to come into the office, and no restrictions on taking commissions from other companies. In other words, she wouldn't be an official employee. Here are the service and non-disclosure agreements. If everything looks good to you, you can go ahead and sign. Lily nodded, took the contracts with both hands, glanced at them for 2 seconds, and then subtly slid them over to Lucas. A small smile touched Lucas's lips as he resignedly took on the task of reviewing them for her. Lynn paused, swallowing unconsciously. She'd been so focused on Lillipad that she hadn't noticed before. But this assistant was actually kind of handsome. Looks fine. You can sign, Lucas said a moment later, pushing the documents back in front of Lily. There were no tricks in the contract. In fact, it offered Lily very favorable terms, almost as if they were begging her to work for them. It made sense, though. An artist's reputation mattered. And in the current mobile game market, the name Lillipad was a brand in itself. It was a guarantee of both quality and a certain level of alluring design. If a new character's art was appealing enough, players wouldn't even care about their in-game stats. They'd just drop $100 without a second thought. That was why these companies were willing to hire her as a contractor. It was a status Lily had earned through years of sleepless nights and relentless practice. Just as Lily was about to hand back the signed contracts, she noticed Lynn rubbing her hands together, staring at her. Excuse me, but does your assistant have a girlfriend? Before she could finish the sentence, Lily threw her arms around Lucas's, her expression instantly defensive. This is my husband. Lucas wasn't sure which part of his deadpan reply, I'm the father of 2 kids, had a more stunning effect on Lynn. All he knew was that he dropped the line with a smug grin and walked out. I'm not taking you out with me ever again, Lily huffed in the car, her cheeks still puffed out as she clung to his arm like it was a priceless treasure. Lucas chuckled and helped her with her seatbelt. We're a mom and dad now. Are you really worried someone's going to steal your husband away? I have no shame, Lily said, her tone utterly serious. Her husband was this amazing. Of course she was worried. His good qualities were endless. Sure, he was a total perv, but he was only a perv for her. On second thought, maybe that counted as a good quality too? The logic felt a little shaky, so she shook her head and dropped the thought. By the time she looked up again, Lucas had already started the car. They were on the road. You know, when it comes to being shameless, I think we're evenly matched, he said, his eyes on the road. You get worried too? Of course. You're incredible. Who wouldn't be worried? I still remember when you told me some guy at school asked for your number. I wanted to find him and string him up by his ankles. I'm not good at talking to people, So I always just show them the picture of our marriage license on my phone, Lily said, giving her phone a little shake. So you never have to worry. Wow. Lucas had only meant to compliment her, but now he was speechless, showing people their marriage license. This girl's wonderfully weird brain was going to be the death of him. Are we not going home? Lily asked, noticing they weren't on their usual route. Nope. Her eyes were wide with confusion. Huh. Then where are we going? On a date, Lucas said, coolly, gripping the steering wheel. We're married. Why do we need to go on dates? The kids are at home. Lily was already missing Caleb and Stella, feeling guilty about leaving them to have fun. You don't want ice cream? You don't want donuts? Lucas clicked his tongue. Who was it that was crying for barbecue when she was pregnant? I want some. Then just sit back and enjoy the ride. I'm taking you for barbecue. Then we'll go shopping and see a movie. A triumphant smirk spread across his face. Stella's going to grow up and have boys lining up around the block, and Caleb will grow up and be one of those boys lining up for someone else. But your husband will always be by your side. You know who you should be spending your time with, right? Lily didn't answer. She leaned her head against the window, her expression filled with guilt. Oh, Caleb, Stella, I'm so sorry. Mommy is a terrible person. We had barbecue last time. I want steak this time, she said suddenly, wiping away a tear that had escaped the corner of her eye. Deal, Lucas grinned. She was getting the hang of this. It was nearly evening when they got home. Caleb and Stella were crawling around on the rug, while Emily and Sophia knelt beside them, laughing and gently guiding them. Mom, Lily called out from the doorway, a little embarrassed. After all, they'd been gone all day. It wasn't hard to guess what they'd been up to. Hey, sweetie, both grandmothers answered at once, their expressions free of any judgment. Were the kids okay? Lily asked, crouching down to kiss each of her children. Sophia gently stroked Caleb's soft cheek. Caleb cried once after Stella head-butted him, but other than that, they were angels. Lucas clicked his tongue and lifted Caleb over his head. What's this I hear? Getting pushed around by your little sister? I never let your Aunt Emma get away with that. And how many years older are you than Emma? Emily shot him a look. She didn't know if it was genetic, but the Carter women were a handful. Both Emma and their cousin Maya were clever little troublemakers. She could only hope that Lily's sweet nature would balance things out. Perhaps feeling that the new parents needed a break, Emily and Sophia stayed to make dinner and help put both babies to sleep before heading home. As the sky turned completely dark, Lily was, as usual, absorbed in her drawing at her computer. Lucas, with nothing to do, sat on the sofa like an unemployed bum, yawning. It occurred to him that once the kids were older, he'd have to start going into the office more often. He couldn't just hang around with Lily all day, or the kids might get the wrong idea. He could just imagine it. Their kindergarten teacher asking what their daddy did for a living, and his two little ones announcing, "Our daddy doesn't work. Mommy supports the family." That would be a disaster. Muttering to himself, he went back to watching anime on his phone. The Genius Prince's Guide to Raising a Nation Out of Debt. The title alone screamed low-budget niche show. But it was surprisingly good. At least, the main heroine was pretty. How come this character doesn't even have any good fan art? He said after a while, a wicked grin spreading across his face. Hey, Lily, you should draw one for me. I'll make it my phone wallpaper. Curious, Lily leaned over to look, then fell silent for a long time. You are asking your wife to draw you a picture of another female character for your phone wallpaper, she said, her voice slow and deliberate, putting heavy emphasis on female character. She took several deep, forceful breaths, but in the end, couldn't come up with an appropriate response. She just stared at him, her cheeks puffed out. Lucas, having gotten exactly the reaction he wanted, lay back on the sofa, completely satisfied. These days, if he went more than a few days without one of her headbutts, he started to feel off. Outside, the stars were bright. Dottie, their cat, was asleep in the bedroom with the babies. In the living room, they were each busy with their own thing, not speaking, yet it felt like they were closer than ever. The house was silent, but for some reason, he wished time could stop right here for a little longer. He wanted the kids to grow up slowly, and he wanted him and Lily to grow old slowly. Watching Lily, who was completely focused on her work but had a smile on her face, Lucas smiled too. She truly, genuinely loved what she did. It seemed he'd done a pretty good job these past few years. He had sworn to give back everything the world had taken from her, and now, those ambitious dreams she'd had back when she was saving up for a DSLR camera were coming true, one by one. Lucas must have drifted off, because he was suddenly woken by Lily gently shaking his shoulder. What's wrong? He opened his eyes to see her glaring at him, her face a pout. I finished the wallpaper you wanted, she said, her voice full of grievance. Her eyes were slightly red, the very picture of a wronged wife. Lucas blinked, wondering if he was still dreaming. I was just teasing you, my little jealous puffball. You actually drew it. You said you liked this character, so I drew her. Only a blockhead would have taken that seriously. Do I really seem that stupid to you? Lucas asked, bewildered. Lily hesitated, then it dawned on her. And you, Ms. Thompson, your husband asks you to draw another woman, and you just do it? Seems like your head is just as empty as mine. The girl squeezed her fingers, her voice shrinking. I just wanted to make you happy. Lucas let out a soft, smiling sigh. He'd known her for so long. She had changed so much, and yet some things never changed. She was still his sweet, simple girl, and her love was still just as clumsy and deep. Without a second thought, he swept her up into his arms and headed for the spare bedroom. Lily yelped as her feet left the ground. What were you doing? Lucas just gave her a meaningful look. Lily blinked. Question mark. You perv, she cried, lightly pounding his chest. The kids were asleep, and he was already getting ideas. Just say you don't want to, and I'll put you down right now, he said, actually stopping in his tracks. He gave her a wicked grin. I'm a man of my word. Suddenly, he was playing the gentleman. Lily said nothing, slowly turning her face away. The words she couldn't say bloomed as a blush across her cheeks, turning her pale skin crimson. She buried her hot face in the crook of his neck and tightened her arms around him. Why? Why did you stop walking? She whispered after a moment, noticing he was still standing still. I'm waiting for your answer, he said, his tone perfectly serious. Lily, both shy and annoyed, nipped his neck lightly, leaving a faint mark before she relented. Lucas laughed and carried her into the bedroom. A mother of two, and she still blushed at the drop of a hat. Close the door for me, will you? My hands are full. Okay. When Aaron called Lily to go shopping, Lucas volunteered to stay home with the two kids. Compared to trailing after two women on a shopping spree, watching the two little ones crawl around the living room was a much more relaxing prospect. When they weren't crying, human babies were adorable. Their faces and limbs were chubby, their big, bright eyes blinking, and just looking at them was therapeutic. They were two perfect little angels. Of course, when they started crying in the middle of the night, they were two perfect little demons. Seeing Caleb about to stuff a toy car into his mouth, he quickly leaned over and stopped the foolish act. Silly boy, you've practically shellacked this car with spit already, Lucas muttered, straightening up. He felt a twinge in his lower back and reached around to rub it. That girl of his was a constant temptation. Who could resist? Even when Lily was doing nothing, just lying next to him was enough to drive him crazy. Lucas was convinced of his own innocence. He was still a strapping 24-year-old in peak physical condition, but these nightly escapades. Women were sirens, especially married women. He'd never believed it before, but now he was a firm convert. It just wasn't fair. Why did guys have to put in all the effort and suffer the physical consequences while women were completely fine? He was starting to suspect that his dad's late-night TV habit was just a cover. Every time he went into the living room, Robert was asleep with his eyes closed, but the moment he turned off the TV, his dad would magically wake up. Maybe he just didn't want to go back to the bedroom. Halfway through this thought, he opened his phone and quietly ordered a bottle of high-potency multivitamins from Amazon. A healthy lifestyle starts early. He needed to start taking care of himself now. He never went into battle unprepared. He didn't want to be in his late 30s, listening to Lily trying to coax him into the bedroom. Right now, he was the one she begged for a break mid-run, but fortunes change. Who knew what the future held? So Lucas bought 2 more bottles. They were cheaper than he expected, all 3 for under $100 with free shipping. Just after he placed the order, the front door opened. You were out shopping all day. How come you didn't buy a single thing? Lucas asked, seeing Lily return practically empty-handed. Because I was just going shopping, she said with a tilt of her head, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. Isn't shopping for buying clothes? I just want to look around. Buying clothes costs money. Lucas frowned in exasperation. This woman commanded thousands of dollars for a single illustration, and she was still this frugal. Lily, feeling refreshed from her outing, was about to sit next to him when she saw the payment confirmation on his phone screen. She froze for a second, a faint blush spreading across her face. She quickly looked away, nonchalantly tucking a few loose strands of hair behind her ear. I brought you some bubble tea, she said, seeing him staring at her like she was the culprit. She pushed an unopened cup into his hands, trying to shut him up. What else is in that bag? Lucas asked, sipping his tea and noticing something else in the plastic bag. Lily pulled out a classic alphabet poster, the kind you tape to a wall. If she hadn't bought it, he would have thought they'd gone extinct, like those green, tongue-staining popsicles from when they were kids. And a phonics chart. Isn't it a little early for this? It's good to be prepared. We'll have to buy it sooner or later to teach the kids, Lily said with a gentle smile. Her parents had put one up on the wall when she was very young. Kids with nothing to do would always glance at it. So it did have some effect. Lucas looked at the letters. M, F, D, T. He thought for a long time, but couldn't sound any of them out. After years of reading English, he automatically saw them as letters, not phonetic sounds. He could sound out a word if he saw it written, but give him an isolated sound, and he was lost. Two college graduates sat on the sofa, stumped by a first-grade phonics chart. After a while, Stella, who had been quiet, crawled over and patted Lily's leg. Lily immediately scooped her up and gave her a kiss. "Did you miss Mommy?" Stella's eyes were round and bright as she gave an almost imperceptible nod. Even though it was probably a fluke, Lily was overjoyed. She hugged her daughter tightly and cooed. "Can you say Mama for me?" "Mama." Stella just chewed on her finger, looking confused. As summer drew to a close, Lily's joy in her children was tinged with a subtle, growing worry. "They're already 10 months old and can't say Mama. Do you think they take after me?" Lucas was exasperated. Every time the kids did something a little slow, she immediately blamed herself. "Why is it always they take after you whenever they do something goofy? It's perfectly normal for a 10-month-old not to be talking yet." But Vanessa said Claire was saying Dada and Mama at 6 months. And I read that most babies start around 7 or 8 months. Lucas thought for a moment. "They say as long as they're talking by their first birthday, it's fine. We'll worry about it then." Seeing she was still looking anxious, he added, "Maybe they're just lazy and don't want to open their mouths. My mom said she used to worry about me not walking. Then one day, she saw me walk across the room to snatch a toy car from another kid and realized I was just too lazy to bother. We're not trying to raise a couple of prodigies here. So what if they're a little slower than others? It doesn't mean they're not healthy. Stop worrying about every little thing and blaming yourself. What's so dumb about you? If they grow up to be like you and can pull in 10 grand for a single drawing, I'll be laughing in my sleep." Lily leaned her head on his shoulder, taking his outstretched hand and nodding gently. Listening to his soft, reassuring voice, she was suddenly reminded of when they first met. That afternoon, Sophia came over to see the kids, and Lily couldn't help but ask her when she had first said Mama. "I think you were about 8 months old," Sophia said, holding Caleb and tilting her head back in thought. "Whenever your father was home, he was glued to you. He'd hold you and never let go. I couldn't even get a turn. That's why most babies say Mama first, but you said Dada first." A faint smile touched Sophia's lips. "Your dad was napping on a couch. The moment he heard you say he shot up like he'd been electrocuted. He was a man who smiled much, but that day, he was grinning like an idiot all day long. The next morning, he had to leave for a work trip. The bus driver kept hurrying him, but he refused to get on until he heard you say Dada a few more times. He kept looking back as he boarded the bus, and then..." Sophia's cheerful storytelling trailed off as she remembered something. Her expression became calm again, like a ripple on a pond that disappears without a trace. She was getting old and foolish. She knew talking about Lily's father used to make her cry. Why did she have to bring it up? Just as Sophia was regretting her words and about to change the subject, she was surprised to see Lily, though her eyes were filled with tears, offer a small smile. "I said Dada first. Weren't you jealous?" Sophia blinked, then quickly said, "Of course I was. I was so envious I could have died." She stared at the girl holding the baby, momentarily speechless. Sophia suddenly realized her daughter had changed. She had always been strong, but now there was a new layer of maturity. Lily smiled faintly, her eyes downcast. She didn't say anything more, just gently stroked Stella's soft little hand, trying to hold back her tears. She was happier than she could ever imagine. Crying over the past now would just be childish. Perhaps sensing something, Stella reached up her little hand and wiped at Lily's damp eyelashes. "Oh, wah, Ma." The baby didn't know her own strength and poked Lily right in the eye, making it sting, but Lily didn't care. She was so easy to please. Even a random sound from her daughter that vaguely resembled Mama was enough to make her want to cry with joy. "What did you just say?" Lily lifted Stella up so they were face to face, her voice trembling. Stella's chubby little arms reached for her, wanting to be held, as she painstakingly formed the word again. "Mama." Lily froze, her eyes shimmering with tears, but for a long moment, she didn't move. "Mama, Mama." Stella's pronunciation was blurry at first, but it grew clearer and clearer as she kept calling out. "Yes, yes. Mommy's here," Lily finally managed, hastily wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. "Mama, I'm here." With tears in her eyes, Lily answered every single call, afraid to let even one go unanswered. One of them laughed as she called out tirelessly. The other answered through tears just as tirelessly. Stella seemed to find it amusing and started giggling. Sophia just stood to the side, smiling gently. Lucas, who had been napping, heard the commotion and came out, yawning. What's going on? Stella, can say mama. Lily's voice was uncharacteristically loud with excitement. As far as Lucas could remember, she had always spoken in a timid, quiet way. This was a first. He leaned in to listen, and sure enough, the little girl was saying it. He immediately felt like he'd eaten an entire crate of lemons, his mouth puckering with jealousy. It was ridiculously envy-inducing. All those months he'd spent trying to teach them to say dada. And for what? But as long as Lily was happy, that was all that mattered. She had been so worried about them. Envy aside, he took Caleb from Sophia's arms, bounced him a little, and said softly, Caleb, your sister learned to say mama. You should say it too. Caleb sucked on his fingers, his big eyes darting between his parents' faces before finally settling on Lucas's. What is it? Lucas asked, meeting his gaze. Baba. Caleb's tone wasn't as precise as his sister's, but the word was unmistakable. Lucas paused, a strange thought flashing through his mind. Is this little guy trying to comfort me? A second later, he laughed and dismissed the childish idea. A baby this young? What could he possibly know? He wouldn't even be a year old for another 2 months. Hearing her brother, Stella looked at Lucas as if in competition and called out, Dada. Lucas, who had just been wallowing in sour grapes, raised his eyebrows triumphantly. He turned to Lily with a smug look. See, you said it was too early when I was teaching them. Who's jealous now? Lily's cheeks puffed out, but then she turned a gentle gaze on Caleb. Caleb, can you say mama for me? Mama. If her husband and mother weren't in the room, Lily would have thrown herself on the bed and rolled around in delight. Lucas. His momentary triumph vanished. Caleb's mama was much clearer than his dad. He was starting to suspect this little rascal had known how to say mama all along and had only said dada first because he felt sorry for his pathetic old man. He'd always thought Caleb was the simpler of the two, but now it seemed things weren't so simple. How did two honest, straightforward people like him and Lily end up with two such scheming little geniuses? A little while later, he left Lily in the living room, laughing and crying with the kids, and quietly slipped out onto the master bedroom's balcony. He closed the glass door, and the happy noise from the living room faded away. Looking up at the clear blue sky, Lucas thought for a moment and felt a sudden urge to call his mother. He couldn't remember whether he had said dada or mama first, but he would never forget the day his little sister, Emma, had said go-go, a baby's attempt at gidge, for older brother. His parents had been stunned, then overcome with envy. They said they would remember that moment for the rest of their lives. And so would he. Because of that one impossibly tender word, he, a mere first grader, had saved up his meager weekly allowance, dollar by dollar, until he had over $200 to buy her the most expensive doll in the department store. He was so small, holding so much cash, that the sales clerk had initially refused to sell it to him, thinking he'd stolen the money. Now he would give anything for Lily, including his life, because she called him her husband. He would pour all his energy into raising Caleb and Stella, because they called him Dada. Maybe this was what responsibility felt like. Lost in thought, he was startled when the call connected and Emily's curious voice came through. Hello. Mom, did I say Dada or Mama first? Emily's tone instantly turned icy. Just tell me, what kind of trouble are you in now? Why would you think that? Lucas sputtered, indignant. Because I have a reasonable suspicion that you're trying to appeal to my maternal love and affection so that I'll go easy on you, Emily said with grim certainty. Lucas's mouth twitched. I'm being serious. After what I just said, it's obvious you said mama first. You remember that clearly? Of course. It's the kind of thing parents remember for their entire lives. Ask me again in a few decades, and I'll give you the same answer. Emily paused, then realization dawned. Wait, did the little one start talking? Yeah. Stella said, Mama first, and Caleb said Dada first. On the same day. Wonderful. I need to teach them to say Grandma tomorrow. Can't let their other grandma beat me to it. Emily joked on the other end of the line, but her voice was filled with competitive spirit. When Lucas returned from the balcony, only Lily and the two kids were in the living room. Where's Mom? He asked. She went home. Lucas nodded and sat cross-legged next to Lily, quietly watching the children. The moment he had heard them say Dada, his heart had melted. All the tension and pressure, the uncertainty and anxiety of the past 2 years of becoming a parent, had vanished with that one word. If he had one tiny regret, he glanced at Lily's profile. It was just that they hadn't had a couple more years of it being just the two of them. He couldn't help but feel a little guilty. He suddenly remembered something. Hey, Lillipad, can I ask you a question? Lily tilted her head, her eyes still red-rimmed, which only made her look more striking. What is it? Our wedding night. Were you really on a safe day? All this time later, Lucas couldn't remember if the dates had lined up. He just vaguely recalled that when Lily had told him it was a safe day, she had instinctively looked away. At the time, he thought she was just being shy. Now something felt off. After all, she was the one who had suggested they get married right before she finished her junior year. Lily's gaze slid away from his. She nervously twisted a strand of hair around her finger and mumbled, I think so. You think so? I remember you sounded pretty certain at the time. My memory isn't very good. It's possible I miscalculated because I was nervous, Lily said, her face set in a stubborn pout. She took Stella's little hand and waved it at him. The chances were so small. Maybe it was just fate. Huh. Lucas laughed dryly to himself. Slowly boiling a frog? What frog was I boiling? I'm the one who's been cooked through and through. The thought that he had actually felt guilty about it made Lucas want to jump out the window. He had been completely outplayed by Lily and was still here, counting her winnings for her. He remembered how easy it had been to trick her back in a day. How had things turned out like this? His sweet, simple girl didn't play by the rules. He looked up at Lily and smiled gently. You like kids even more than I thought. His question that night had just been a test, and she had seized the opportunity without a second's hesitation. This time, Lily understood what he meant. She knew Lucas had figured it out. She didn't try to change the subject. A faint blush colored her cheeks, and her eyes shimmered with shyness. She met his gaze, then leaned in close to his ear, bit her lip, and whispered, I just like having children that belong to you and me. Our children. Lucas watched the twins slowly crawling toward Dottie, their cat. With every inch they advanced, Dottie would subtly shift a little further away, coaxing them to keep moving. He couldn't help but smile. Being spoiled by so many people from the start, they're definitely going to have happier lives than we did. Don't say that. Lucas turned to see Lily looking at him with an incredibly determined gaze. When she saw him looking, she quickly lowered her head, fiddling with her fingers. I hope I can make you as happy as our children. After October, Seattle was blanketed in a persistent autumn drizzle, and the weather grew colder. As the kids got bigger, Lucas was finally able to shift some of his focus back to the company. The next morning, for the first time in ages, the boss who had set the company record for truancy actually clocked in. The official launch of Gate of Terminus was less than 3 months away, and there was one last routine meeting with the investors. The game's performance would determine whether they broke even, let alone how much profit they made, so all the investment firms were paying close attention. Well, look what the cat dragged in. What are you doing at our company? Aaron's sarcastic voice greeted him the moment he walked in. Lucas remained unbothered, simply offering her a benevolent smile. You'll know who I am when you see your bonus for this month has been docked to 0. Please be kind. Thank you. I'm saving up for a house, Aaron replied with a smile of her own. Lucas snorted. As he turned to leave, Aaron poked him in the arm. She pointed her own neck and grinned wickedly. I'd recommend pulling that collar up a bit. Lucas checked his phone's camera and saw 2 distinct red marks on his neck. He cleared his throat and nonchalantly tugged his collar higher. That girl. Couldn't she pick a less obvious spot? Wow. I had no idea you two were so wild behind closed doors, Aaron said, clicking her tongue. Lily does all the housework, big and small, takes care of 2 kids, and then at night she still has to. Wow. You should be ashamed of yourself. Come to think of it, he never would have pegged Lily as the type to leave Hickey's. The reason I haven't been at the office is because I've been helping with the kids. Are you trying to lecture me, a perfect gentleman, on how to behave? If you're a perfect gentleman, then I'm a Nigerian prince. I see what this is. This is just the bitterness of a single person, Lucas said with a look of disdain. He still couldn't believe she had once fallen for that scam. Her intelligence was a mystery. Sometimes she was sharp as a tack. Other times she was dense enough to believe an email from a foreign royal. Aaron huffed. I'm not jealous. What was there to be jealous of? Hickeys could cause blood clots, and if a clot traveled to your brain or heart, you drop dead on the spot. Later, she would find all the articles about people dying from hickeys and send them to this shameless couple. You know, it's nice to have someone, Lucas muttered. He had always assumed Aaron, like his sister Emma, just preferred being single. Wait, you never knew what's wrong with me? Aaron asked, finally realizing. Her brain couldn't quite process it. Lucas looked at her like she was an idiot. You never told me. How would I know? Lily never told you. It's your private business. Why would she tell me? I just assumed you'd asked her. The person involved never bothered to tell me. So why would I go behind your back and ask her? Lucas said, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. After a few more circular exchanges, Aaron fell silent. Finally, she just gave him a weary thumbs up. This couple, they were both good people. She couldn't think of a better way to describe them. I suddenly feel the urge to sacrifice my life for Polaris Interactive, Erin said, her tone deliberately joking. Even though this jerk of a boss was always docking her pay, she was genuinely touched. Lucas had been quietly lightening her workload for years, even hiring Chloe as her assistant early on. Though her paychecks were often lighter than they should have been, she was still the highest paid employee at the company. All these details had led her to assume Lucas had known the whole story from Lily for a long time. Now it seemed that wasn't the case. He had probably just picked up on a few small things and decided to look out for her. She had only helped him start the company as a favor to Lily, but in the end, it was she who had been silently taken care of by this couple all along. Just don't die in my company, Lucas said flatly, just as Erin was feeling emotional. Erin froze. The words reminded her of some meme she'd seen online. Don't die on my phone. Never mind. She took it all back. To hell with being touched. This guy deserved to die a horrible death. Where was a truck when you needed one? Just run him over already. Half an hour later, in the Polaris Interactive conference room, the massive oval table was packed. Besides the Polaris team, representatives from all the major investors who had funded the project were present. It was the largest meeting in the company's history. The closed beta and marketing push started a few days ago, right? How's the response? Lucas leaned over and whispered to Leo during a lull. He noticed that except for Veronica Vance, all the other investors looked grim. A bad feeling started to creep in. Sure enough, Leo looked down at his report and said nothing for a long time. Lucas frowned. Well, say something. The marketing results aren't ideal, Leo said, pushing up his glasses, his voice barely a whisper. Lucas's expression didn't change. How so? The players in the closed beta love it, but we can't seem to generate any mainstream buzz, no matter what we do. Leo sighed. He was supposed to report this to Lucas today anyway, so he might as well get it all out. Our return on ad spend is basically negative. Gate of Terminus is the only mobile game of its kind on the market right now. It's a completely new genre, and some players just don't seem motivated to try it. Seeing Lucas's stony expression, he quickly added, it's not all bad. The pre-launch hype is still way better than our first two games. So, it's a critical darling but a commercial flop, Lucas thought, managing a small, humorless smile. Leo's attempt at reassurance wouldn't have even worked on Jason, let alone him. No one at Polaris understood how dire the situation was better than its founder. They'd had no money from marketing before. The hype for their first two games had been minimal. They only took off after he pulled some crazy stunts at launch. But forget the difference in marketing costs. How much had those first two games cost to make? When they made Tower of Ascension, they were a tiny studio. The whole project cost less than $50,000. Regenesis had funding from Titan Gaming, so they had more to work with, but it still only came in around $500,000. The initial budget for Gate of Terminus was $10 million. With subsequent investments, they were already past the $12 million mark. The development cycle alone was longer than the first two games combined. From its inception, this game had no room for mediocrity. Anything less than a blockbuster launch, and they wouldn't even make their money back. Although the marketing feedback was poor, it wasn't something they could hide from the investors. Leo reported the situation point by point. Impressive for someone so young. Mr. Carter has the guts to throw away nearly $15 million. That's more than you can say for most people his age. The way Mr. Carter talked back then, I thought this game was going to be a phenomenon. Huh. Turns out it's a dud that can't even generate buzz after spending a fortune on advertising. A few of the investors started to speak up. These were the bandwagoners, the ones who barely understood the industry and lacked the patience of the early investors. Seeing that their money might be gone for good, they couldn't resist making snide remarks. That's how these young people are, isn't it? All thunder, no rain. I saw it coming from a mile away, which is why I didn't invest much. A round-faced man chimed in, then looked over at Veronica Vance. Ms. Vance, we've known each other for years. This is the first time I've ever seen you misjudge someone. Veronica, her hands clasped, simply returned a polite smile before turning her head to continue observing the unfolding drama. Out of the corner of her eye, she saw that Lucas's expression remained calm. He sat quietly at the head of the table, his head slightly bowed, as if nothing was happening. She was very pleased. Lucas was unaware of Veronica's scrutiny. His attention was entirely on the phone under the table. Lucas, what's for dinner tonight? Lily, it's not even noon. Lucas, I'm bored. Just wanted to chat. Lily, confused, scratching head, Jiff Lily. Oh, by the way, I was drawing just now, and I saw Stella pull herself up to stand using the crib railing. Lucas, did you get a picture? Lily, I got too excited and forgot. I have to say, Mr. Carter is truly one of a kind, someone on the left side of the table muttered. A few of the founding members of Polaris looked up, wanting to say something, but the results of the marketing blitz were undeniable. They had no ground to stand on. If things continued this way, Gate of Terminus would be a massive loss, and it would drag Polaris down into bankruptcy with it. Years of their lives and hard work, all down the drain. At first, they had even been worried Lucas wouldn't be able to handle the pressure. BM! Someone slammed their hand on the table. The sharp sound echoed through the room, stunning everyone into silence. Lucas looked up and saw the sound had come from Aaron. Holy crap, she actually came to a meeting, was his first thought. A $200,000 stake in a $12 million project, she said, her voice seething. If I'd invested that little, I'd be too embarrassed to even show up, Mr. Lee. But here you are running your mouth. If we're talking about who's one of kind, you're in a class all your own. The man, caught off guard, could only glare at her. But Aaron didn't flinch, staring right back at him, her expression icy. I'm not even afraid of Lucas, she thought. You think I'm afraid of you? I'm the only one who gets to yell at the bosses around here. Lucas, who had been silent the whole time, tapped the table twice, drawing everyone's attention. Once the room was quiet again, he finally spoke. The investment contract states that you can't withdraw your funds. However, we can draft a new agreement that allows you to pull your money out. Of course, he added, that means you'll forfeit any future dividends. Seeing Lucas's face still placid and untroubled, the round-faced man was momentarily thrown. He wondered if he'd misread the situation or if Lucas actually had another trick up his sleeve. But his peers were watching. Backing down in front of a kid like this would make him a laughingstock. Besides, deep down, he didn't believe a game with such dismal pre-launch hype could possibly succeed. Lucas was just bluffing. He snorted. How generous of you, Mr. Carter. Please draft that agreement as soon as possible. I'm afraid if I wait too long, the soon-to-be-acquired Polaris won't even be able to afford the $200,000. No problem. Leo, see our guest out. Lucas's calm, gentle gaze swept over the remaining investors. He smiled faintly. Ladies, gentlemen, if you want to withdraw your investment, now is the time. If you wait until Polaris goes bankrupt, you won't get a dime. He was joking, but his fingers were gripping the pen in his hand so tightly his knuckles had turned white. If one or two more pulled out, Polaris really wouldn't have the cash to cover it. He was betting he could call their bluff and shut them all up at once. If they kept sowing dissent right before launch, it would destroy his team's morale, and then it would truly be over. Luckily, his gamble paid off. A smile deepened on the face of Veronica Vance, who had $40 million invested. The other investors looked from Lucas to her, hesitated, and remained silent. Polaris grew from a small studio of a dozen people to what it is today. We faced countless setbacks. This is just one more. Leave this to me. That's all for today, Lucas said, ending the meeting and leaving the room first. Leo hurried after him. Lucas, did you think of a solution? No, I'm still thinking. Then just now you were. Look at all of you, with your long faces. If I, the leader, had admitted I had no plan, wouldn't it all have been over? Lucas walked to a window and saw a few raindrops splattering against the glass. He stopped, staring out at them for a long time. Meanwhile, Veronica Vance walked out of the Polaris Interactive headquarters, accompanied by Stephen Jun. You know, I'm almost hoping Polaris runs into trouble, Veronica said suddenly, a smile playing on her lips as she watched the rain begin to darken the pavement. But wouldn't your $40 million investment be a total loss? Stephen asked, confused. He stepped forward to open the car door for her. You even kicked a partner off the board over this. He knew that while his boss was incredibly wealthy, she was not so generous as to consider $40 million pocket change. More importantly, it was about her reputation, built over years of near invincibility. At her level, her name was worth more than the money. That's why Mr. Lee's taunts had been so pointed. Veronica settled into the car and shook her head with a smile. Only if Polaris fails do I have a chance of luring him over to my company. Bring a man like that under my wing, and he'll make me back that $40 million many times over. She turned back to Stephen and held up 4 fingers. He's only 24. He built Polaris from the ground up. Not to mention he managed to get a powerhouse like Professor Ian in his corner with no family connections to speak of. Even at our scale, if we got into a legal dispute with Polaris here in Seattle, we wouldn't stand a chance. His mind, his connections, all of that is part of his value. Stephen suddenly suspected she had anticipated this very scenario when she first invested. No wonder you weren't worried at all back there. I built my empire from scratch. I got to where I am today by never making a mistake. I knew it. You really like this kid? Stephen said, a hint of envy in his voice. Veronica had been keen to recruit him years ago, but it was nothing like this. Veronica reached a hand out the window, catching a few raindrops before turning back with a neutral expression and rolling it up. Of course, I like anyone who can make me money. With Jason out of commission because his daughter was in the hospital, Lucas stayed at the office until late into the night for the first time. Outside the window, the city lights sparkled, casting a cool glow on the students walking below in pairs and groups, reveling in the carefree days of their youth. The office was dark, lit only by the city lights outside. Lucas sat in his chair like a statue, motionless for a long time. He was lost in thought when his phone vibrated, its screen a piercing light in the darkness. "Lily, where are you?" Lucas, still at the office. "Finishing some things up." "Lily, can I come see you?" "Lily, I'll just wait outside, I won't bother you." "Lucas, don't. It's too late. I'm heading home now." He walked out his office. The company lights were already off. As he was about to leave, he heard a voice. "Lucas, want to grab a late-night snack?" He jumped. "Jesus, Leo, what are you still doing here? It's almost 11. I'm the reigning champion of overtime. Can't let you break my streak, can I?" Seeing Lucas leave with a speechless expression, Leo quickly pulled out his phone and sent a message to the group chat. "Leo, Lucas left. Chloe, when? How did this happen?" "Leo, just now." The chat, with dozens of people in it, went silent. Finally, Chloe sent a voice message. Her usual timid voice was gone, replaced by a furious tirade. "Leo Jenkins, weren't you supposed to be watching him? Is this how you watch him? We could have tied a husky to the front door, and it would have done a better job. How could you let us down? How could you let Lily down? Ugh, you're a disgrace to history." "Leo, no, I mean he left the office. He said he was going home." "Aaron, you couldn't have led with that?" "Leo, he seemed normal. Same as usual." Chloe retracted a message. "Chloe, roger that. Keep us posted if anything changes." Leo, Aaron at Chloe, "I preferred your fiery, rebellious side from a minute ago. Please bring it back." "Aaron, who's on watch duty next? Let's roll for it. Lowest number goes." When he got home, Lily was sitting alone on the sofa. Her left arm hung limply at her side, while her right hand gripped it tightly. She looked anxious. She wasn't doing anything, just sitting there. "Where are the kids?" he asked softly. "I just put them to sleep." It might have been his imagination, but Lucas thought he saw a wave of relief wash over her. He nodded. He was about to say he was hungry, but glanced at the time and thought better of it. He sat down next to her and noticed her eyelids were drooping with exhaustion. "It's so late. Why aren't you asleep?" "I was waiting for you," Lily murmured, leaning her head on his shoulder. Her voice was incredibly soft. "When Caleb and Stella get bigger, will you take me traveling? You said you'd take me to see the northern lights and the glowing sea." "Of course. And then, when we're older and I've saved up enough money for my art, I want to open a cafe, like the one we went to for Vanessa's wedding, with lots of desserts. You could play video games and go fishing, and if you get really bored, you could come and help me run the shop. Wouldn't that be a happy life?" Lucas nodded in agreement, not immediately catching on. He was a little surprised. He'd never heard her talk like this before. Why a cafe all of a sudden? "I feel like I could eat lots and lots of cream puffs and other things that way, and I wouldn't have to pay the markup." Lucas chuckled and gently pinched her cheek. "You're such a glutton. Anyone listening would think you were huge, but you're still so skinny." He was pleased, though. His years of tempting her with the finer things in life were finally paying off. But why was she suddenly talking about the future? Something felt strange. Lily never talked about these things. The living room felt quiet. The faint, sweet scent of her hair and skin began to soothe his frayed nerves. He wrapped an arm around her slender waist and leaned in to kiss her. Sensing his intent, she slowly closed her eyes, waiting obediently. He gazed at her long, curled lashes. Just as their lips were about to meet, he paused, his eyes involuntarily flicking toward the bedroom. Stella had pulled herself up by the bars of her crib. She stood there, sucking on her thumb, her big, clear eyes watching them. "That damn kid." Sensing he hadn't moved, Lily slowly opened her eyes. "What's wrong?" she whispered. "The baby's awake." Lucas walked into the bedroom with a sigh of resignation. Caleb was still sleeping soundly, and he didn't have the heart to wake him, so he just picked up Stella. "Say that," he said, returning to the sofa. He gave Stella's cheek a gentle pinch. It was her fault for ruining his moment. Dada Lucas, who had been annoyed a second ago, broke into a goofy grin. "Such a good girl. Let me give you a kiss." He planted a kiss on her jelly-like cheek, and when Stella giggled, his heart completely melted. He used to think Jason was a total simp for his daughter, but now he realized Jason had been holding back. Damn it. Whoever dared to date this girl in the future would have to get through Caleb first. With that thought, he kissed her other cheek. Stella smiled and patted his face. Lucas looked over and saw Lily pouting at him. He He understood immediately and leaned over to place a soft kiss on her cheek. Seeing she still wasn't satisfied, he kissed her other cheek, just as he had with his daughter. "I want 3, Lily said, her cheeks puffed out. He was the one who told her to think about who would be with her the longest, to not just focus on the kids. And now here he was, kissing only his daughter and not his wife. "Are you really jealous of your own daughter?" he teased with a grin. The girl didn't speak, just looked up at him with her watery eyes, looking pitiful and wronged. Lucas felt his heart skip a beat. Okay. Stella, hold on a second. Daddy's going to show you a magic trick." Even though a baby wouldn't understand, he covered Stella's eyes with his hand before pressing his lips to Lily's. The wind outside was bitingly cold, but in the living room, he felt a gentle warmth. After a long moment, they parted. I should have given you 2 sons, Lily mumbled, fiddling with her fingers. Lucas laughed. "You silly girl." Lucas. "How much money do you owe?" Seeing a hint of a smile finally return to his face, Lily summoned her courage and asked in a small voice, her eyes fixed on his expression, terrified of upsetting him. Aaron had only told her that Polaris was on the verge of failure and bankruptcy, and that she should keep a close eye on Lucas. Lily didn't know much about business operations, so her mind immediately equated bankruptcy with massive debt. That's how it always happened in TV shows, and she'd seen news stories about failed CEOs on rooftops. Lucas tilted his head in confusion. "When did I go into debt? How come I don't know about this?" He was about to speak when Lily gripped his right hand tightly. Her eyes were as clear and beautiful as the day he met her, but now they held a new firmness. "It's okay," she said softly. "No matter how much it is, we'll pay it back together, slowly. I made it through all those hard years before. I'm not afraid to do it again. I just need you to be okay." Lucas blinked. "What? So that's why she'd been acting so strange tonight. Who started this rumor?" He sighed, a cold look on his face, and waved a dismissive hand. "I owe $100 million. I'll never be able to pay it back. You can still divorce me now and get out. The debt won't be tied to you." He felt like an idiot. She had just thrown him for such a loop, and his first instinct was to tease her back. Her eyes welled up with tears, but she answered earnestly, I won't leave." His voice turned frigid. "Do you have any idea how much money that is? We couldn't pay it back in a lifetime, let alone several. We'll lose the house. We'll be eating crackers and canned beans every day. I still won't leave," Lily said, her eyes red, looking as if she were about to burst into tears. Her voice was almost a plea. "Lucas, I'm begging you, please don't leave me, okay?" "Wait, you actually believe me?" Lucas was silent for a moment, then gently poked her forehead with his finger. A mother of 2, and still so naive. She believed everything he said without a shred of doubt. "I didn't lose any money," he said seriously. "I told you before when I started this, I set a rule for myself. I would never ask my family for money, and I would never go into debt. So this time, at worst, it's just the $10 million we earned gone. Years of hard work down the drain. It won't affect our family." The entrepreneurs who failed and ended up buried in debt were often the ones who couldn't handle the fall. They got desperate, took on a gambler's mentality, and ended up losing everything. He wouldn't be like that. No matter how bitter he felt, he would never drag Lily or his parents down with him. But he didn't notice that his own expression was far from as nonchalant as his words suggested. Lily's mood didn't improve. A film of tears still clouded her vision. They had been together for so long, but she still couldn't tell when he was telling the truth. After all, he'd been tricking her since the day they met, since they were children. But she could always tell, in an instant, whether he was happy or not. "Dada," Stella said, as if sensing the heavy mood. She sat on Lucas's lap, patting his face with her tiny hands. Lucas lifted her above his head and met her eyes with a faint smile. "Don't worry. I have plenty of ways to support our family. Daddy's the pillar of this household, after all." Lily's eyes were red. She hadn't thought much of it at first, but Lucas kept glancing at her. He'd been making that stupid pun for 2 years, and only today did she finally understand what he meant by pillar. She wiped the corners of her eyes and shot him a look that was both angry and sad. But in the end, she couldn't bring herself to headbutt him. Babies get tired quickly. Within 2 minutes, Stella was asleep in Lucas's arms. After putting her back in her crib, Lucas returned to find Lily staring at him, her lips pressed together. She took a couple of deep breaths, looked down, and fiddled with her fingers. After a long pause, she spoke, her voice as faint as a mosquito's buzz. I bought a new pair of socks." Her voice got smaller and smaller until it was almost lost. The last time she'd bought a pair like this was when she promised to wear them for him, so long ago. If it weren't for his bad mood, she never would have bought them. "Oh," Lucas said. I told you we're not in debt. You can buy whatever you want. They're white. Lucas turned to look at her. Why are you suddenly telling me this? Lily's face turned scarlet all the way to her ears. She could have died from frustration. Was she being that subtle? If you don't want to see them, then never mind. The courage she had mustered was gone. She scurried back toward the bedroom. It suddenly clicked for Lucas. He followed, right behind her, like a predator stalking its prey. You should have just said so, he said with a wicked grin, just before he closed the door. Late at night, after coaxing Lily to sleep, Lucas walked out of the bedroom. The carefree smile was gone. It wasn't until he had a family that he truly understood the immense weight of responsibility. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw his entire family waiting for him to build a better life for them. Lily might not care if he made money, but he never wanted to see her go back to buying $10 clothes and agonizing over grocery prices. He never wanted Caleb and Stella to grow up seeing other kids with all sorts under score of new and exciting toys, forcing themselves to pretend they weren't envious, to be the sensible ones. Lucas let out a long breath. He had been too naive. People are like that. Until disaster strikes. Everyone thinks they're the lucky one, the one who will succeed, completely blind to the mountain of skeletons beneath the waves. Damn it. If only I had a cheat system, he thought. Just let me log in and collect a few million, or maybe just gift me a company. Then I wouldn't be up all night worrying. At the very least, he could use some quest rewards. But reality wasn't that kind. Miracles didn't just fall from the sky. Lucas tilted his head back, summarizing the problem. It all boiled down to one thing. People were tired. After a long day of work and life, they just wanted to do their daily quests, scroll through TikTok for a bit, and go to bed. They didn't have the energy or the willingness to try something new. That was why the marketing was failing, why they couldn't build momentum. Polaris wasn't Titan Gaming or Mammoth Games. They didn't have the brand recognition or the marketing muscle. For a mobile game, relying on quality and word of mouth was the least effective strategy. If you don't start strong, you can't build momentum later. The big studios weren't stupid. The moment the game launched, they would see the potential in gate of Terminus's model, even if it wasn't a hit. The very next day, a copycat game would be greenlit in their studios. Gate of Terminus was built around social interaction and cooperates. With their deep pockets, the big guys could blanket the world with ads. Players would suddenly find all their friends playing a similar game and would have no reason to stick with theirs, even if it was slightly better. That's how you steal the cake in the mobile game market. League of Legends didn't kill off other MOBAs just by being good. Once that happened, Polaris would have no chance of a comeback. After thinking it through, the problem became simple. Either they dominate the entire market the moment the game goes live, leaving only scraps for the competition, or they die. Why does everything I do need a miracle? I'm no miracle worker. Lucas muttered to himself, sighing as he stared out at the night sky. He didn't see Lily, standing just around the corner of the wall, silently keeping him company. For as long as Lucas sat alone on the sofa that night, Lily leaned against the wall, staying with him. The next morning, Lucas, with dark circles under his eyes, got ready to head back to the company. Even if there was nothing to do, he could at least reassure the employees. As he reached the front door, Lily, who had been following him the whole time, stopped and gently tugged on the hem of his shirt. He turned to see her looking at him timidly. I want to go with you. Lucas tilted his head. Why the sudden urge to come to the office? Erin said she'd teach me some new art techniques. And the kids? Mom is coming over to watch them. She can still teach you anything. There is always something to learn from others, Lily said, her face serious. Lucas smiled. She couldn't even come up with a believable excuse. A knock came from the door. He opened it, and sure enough, it was his mother, Emily. The moment she saw him, her eyes turned red. She stepped forward and cradled his face in her hands. If the company goes bankrupt, we'll just close it. We could do something else, anything. You just have to be okay. If anything happens to you, I can't live either. Wait, how's my company bankrupt already? And Mom, do I really seem that fragile? Lucas's mouth twitched. Even if we don't pull through this time, it just means the $10 million we worked so hard to earn is gone. That's it. As he said it, he paused. Just $10 million gone. That's it. Something about that sounded off. He doubted anyone would believe him. Emily certainly didn't. You think I don't remember? That time you bombed your finals, you stayed out until midnight. Your father and I were worried sick. We were about to call the police. I used that as an excuse to go to the arcade. Lucas clapped a hand over his mouth, taking 2 steps back as he looked at his mother in terror. Thankfully, her expression remained blank. Mom, I have an amazing wife, a son, and a daughter. Even if the company goes under, my life is pretty great. Why would I do something stupid? Lucas shrugged. He was worried, yes, but he wasn't about to give up. He had no debt. He could always start over or do something else. It just wouldn't be as profitable as running his own company. Not to mention, Professor Ian had forced him to pass the bar exam years ago, giving him one more safety net. Emily was silent for a moment, then looked troubled. You said everything I was going to say. What am I supposed to say now? Then don't say anything. I'm fine. How about I watch the kids, and you and Lily go on a trip? Clear your heads. Emily patted Lily's shoulder, and Lily immediately nodded. She quickly took Lucas's hand. Let's go on a trip. I'll go anywhere you want. I told you I'm fine, Lucas said, exasperated. He pulled out his phone to check the time and was startled by a screen full of WhatsApp messages. The first was from Emma. Bro, when heaven is about to confer a great responsibility on any man. Or whatever, it's too long. You know what I mean? Don't you dare give up. Even though I've given you crap our whole lives, I've always thought you were better than anyone else's brother. And all those times I said, I hope you become a dragon. Well, you can hope for me to become one too. I'll just have to work harder. Emma, Lucas Carter, are you playing dead? Emma, bro, I'm begging you, just answer me. I still remember how you saved up your allowance to buy me that Barbie doll when we were kids. If you're not around, who's going to have my back? Aaron's message was shorter. Think of Lily. Damn it. The worst part wasn't feeling hopeless. The worst part was everyone around you thinking you felt hopeless. There was no way to explain. It was like being locked in a mental hospital and trying to convince the doctors you weren't crazy. Looking at Lily's terrified face, Lucas decided not to go to the company after all. Lily readily agreed, the tension in her shoulders relaxing considerably. At least he was right here in front of her. For the next few days, Lucas stayed at home, acting as he normally would. He seemed fine when playing with the kids, always cheerful, but every now and then he would just stare into space, lost in thought. One afternoon, in the middle of stacking blocks, he suddenly stood up. I've got it. By the time the twins were over a year old, they had both learned to walk. They said dada and mama with ease and were even starting to mimic other words. Aside from the crying, they were at their most adorable stage. Unfortunately, Lucas hadn't had much time for them lately, busy with company matters. The day before the launch, he called Leo into his office. There's still some money left in the company account. Take all of it and hire streamers to play the game. Make sure they're all at the login screen, ready to go right at launch time. Leo nodded, his heart sinking. It seemed Lucas hadn't found a real solution after all. This was just a last-ditch effort. It's okay, Lucas. If this doesn't work, we'll just start over. I'll even work for free. And Lucas cut him off. There's one last thing I need you to do. Leo's eyes lit up. What is it? Come here. Only you can know about this, Lucas said, beckoning him closer with a mischievous look. Leo didn't say another word until he was out of Lucas's office. He suddenly felt that after all these years of being personally mentored by Lucas, he hadn't learned a single thing. The next day, Gate of Terminus went live, just as all the big-name streamers, including Lily, and all the players who had been eagerly anticipating the game logged in, they discovered a problem with their login reward. The in-game mail clearly stated a gift of 6 Ignis gems, the currency used for character pulls. But what they actually received was 60. That was basically $100 worth of premium currency. This bug lasted for about 2 hours before it was urgently fixed. As expected, the forums immediately split into 2 camps. The first were the people who had gotten the freebie or had seen it on a stream and immediately downloaded the game. They were everywhere, bragging about the amazing characters they'd pulled with their free gems. The second group were the people who had missed out. The more they read, the more bitter they became, and soon they were cursing Jason Miller's name. Why Jason and not Lucas? That story goes back several years, to when Lucas secretly assigned Jason the title of lead designer at Polaris's inception. By that afternoon, Polaris was trending on Twitter for all the wrong reasons. Countless YouTubers, sensing a viral opportunity, had already churned out dozens of videos trashing the company. Lucas waited until the fire was raging, then promptly called a small, live-streamed press conference. Polaris was no small-time studio anymore. They could pull something like this together. As the founder, he appeared personally, issued an apology, and announced that the supervisor responsible for the coding error, Leo Jenkins, would be suspended for 3 months. Then he announced a severe punishment for the employee who had, without authorization, stopped the faulty mail from being distributed. Wait a minute, a reporter interjected, sensing something was off. You punished the person who stopped the erroneous mail from being sent. That's correct, Lucas said with a slight nod. We've promised not to do a server rollback, and we will not take any action against players who have already spent these Ignis gems. Are you serious? What are the people who logged in earlier, Dad? When is this garbage company going to die? Trash game. I wouldn't spend a dime on it, even if you begged me. Are the people defending this company actual saints or just idiots? Just as the live chat was exploding with rage, Lucas spoke again, his voice calm. For all the launch day players who did not receive this bugged mail, we expect to have a compensatory mail sent out by this evening. Furthermore, any player who registers for the game within the next 3 days will also receive this gift. Holy crap, Daddy! Wait, if everyone gets $100, doesn't that mean no one gets $100? Did that last guy escape from the circus? From this day forward, I'm a gate of terminus loyalist. Polaris is my father. Do not slander him. Mr. Carter, why 3 days? Another reporter asked. Lucas gave an honest, boyish smile, looking like a college student new to the professional world. Well, I have to make money somehow. I can't run a charity. I've got 2 one-year-olds at home, you know. Won't this be unfair to players who register later? Clearly, not everyone in the press pool was a fan. But this was the question Lucas had been waiting for. Players who register after the 3-day period will also be able to receive the same number of Ignis gems, he said, his tone serious. However, we will be incorporating them into the new player quests. Players will simply need to play for about a week to complete all the quests and receive the rewards. Meanwhile, Polaris headquarters was in chaos. Leo, how dare you show your face in this office? Don't hold me back. The bosses aren't here. I'm going to kill him for Lucas. The programming department had been in an uproar all day, worried that someone might leak the truth, that this had all been Lucas's plan from the start. Leo had stuck to his story, insisting he had made a typo while coding. As a result, he had become public enemy number 1, on the receiving end of insults and glares all day. He had narrowly avoided being beaten up by the other veteran employees. He had understood everything except the true meaning behind his suspension. It was to protect him from his co-workers. But even as the target of their rage, he didn't say a word. Aaron, who had watched the end of the press conference, rushed over to grab Chloe, who was holding a potted plant and about to charge at Leo. Aaron, Lucas and Lily have been so good to you. Why are you stopping me? Chloe cried, tears in her eyes. Aaron just shook her head, silent for a moment. She had wanted to string Leo up herself, but watching how things had unfolded and knowing Lucas as she did, something felt off. If her guess was right, then she couldn't explain it. To pull this off while keeping the entire company in the dark. Suddenly, she found Lucas a little terrifying. That mind of his, if he weren't in game development, he'd probably be a billionaire by now. The next day, after the dust had settled, Lucas was at home, acting as if nothing had happened, when he received a message. Leo, Lucas, we're number 1 on the download charts. A landslide victory. It worked. Lucas, send a free skin code to that investor, Mr. Lee, the one who pulled out at the meeting. Tell him it's his dividend. When the twins were a little over 2, Lucas did 2 things. He amicably bought out all of Titan Gaming's shares in Polaris and distributed them among the veteran employees who had been there from the start. Second, though Lily had only mentioned it in passing that one night, he opened a cafe with her, right on the waterfront. That year, Lucas turned 26. He could no longer be described as a young man. His features were still handsome, but his expression had gained a new weight and maturity, the last traces of his boyishness gone. Jason, who was just 3 years away from being a middle-aged man himself, stood before him, staring for a long time before sighing. Our company has survived so much over the years. Why do you suddenly want to quit? Jason asked. Although everyone at Polaris knew their boss was a work-from-home specialist, his recent absence was extreme. He was practically a ghost. Lucas, who was sitting on the sofa reading a book, looked up. I'm not quitting. Jason glanced at the book, a guide to different types of coffee beans, and frowned. The acknowledged genius of the domestic mobile game industry, Seattle's only rising star entrepreneur, was holed up at home studying this stuff. I haven't seen you at the office in 2 weeks. It's not busy right now. I'm just slacking off, Lucas said with a small smile. Before, even though I didn't have to go in, my mind was always working. It's exhausting. You hit financial freedom and lost your motivation. Is that it? You can never have enough money. Even if you're just living off interest, you have to worry about inflation. I just want a break. Just as Jason was about to reply, Lucas's expression turned serious. You've known the truth for a long time. As long as I'm in charge, your father will never truly acknowledge you. But you don't want to, and can't bring yourself to, push me out. So, here's a good solution. The development of Polaris's next game is all yours. I'm taking a vacation. The living room was quiet for a long time. Jason knew what Lucas meant. He was just wondering if Lucas had foreseen this day 5 years ago, on the evening he agreed to start a company with him. Polaris is your baby. I can't bring myself to change it, Jason sighed. How about this? Just like we did with Arcade Studios at the beginning, I'll start a new studio under the Polaris umbrella. I'll fund the new project myself. Sound good, Lucas replied softly. He had expected Jason would say that. He was sincere in his offer to hand over Polaris, but he also knew his friend would rather give up his own dream than mess with the company they had built from scratch over 5 years. 5 years already. Lucas thought, a little dazed. It felt like such a long time. That meant he and Jason had known each other for almost 10 years. Jason didn't speak. He remembered Lucas in college, the one who was always leading the charge to skip class, who would have been happy to spend all day in a rocking chair with a cup of tea. He'd even been publicly reprimanded for sneaking out a university-wide lecture to go sunbathe on the quad. A notorious slacker. The stress and mental toll of running a startup must have been torture for him. Jason had always known, deep down, that Lucas's heart was never really in it. Every time Jason cheered for a milestone at Polaris, Lucas would just give him a small smile, happy because his friend was happy. Jason clenched his fist, sniffing back the sudden sting in his nose. He smiled and lightly punched Lucas on the chest. Thanks for sticking with me all these years. You worked hard. Go get him, Lucas said simply. After Jason left, Lucas saw Caleb running through the rooms and called out a word of caution before returning to his book. Lily didn't have the mind for studying coffee. That task fell to the brilliant and capable Master Carter. He alone shouldered all the burdens. He really did. It was just that Caleb was so hyper now, constantly interrupting his train of thought. Once a child fully masters the controls of Earth Online, they naturally embark on a journey to explore the world. Usually, the starter village is their own home. Like players in The Witcher 3 or The Legend of Zelda, they will pick up every single piece of junk they can find. Stella, a little older now, had outgrown her habit of gnawing on her brother. Her hair was growing longer, and she was developing a sense of herself as a girl. In fact, she loved to imitate him. Right now, she was sitting beside him, pretending to read a book as well. Just as Lucas was about to reach out and pat her head, Caleb came running over recklessly, holding a small blue plastic box. Daddy, what's this? Lucas sat up straight and leaned in for a closer look. Dude, he froze. That damn kid. How did he find something hidden so well? Seeing Caleb about to open it himself, he said quickly, That's a balloon, buddy. Daddy will blow one up for you. Thankfully, Caleb was easy to fool now. Lucas, on the other hand, already knew how to read when he had found one of these in his parents' house. I want to play too. Caleb reached for it, but when Lucas didn't offer it, he obediently pulled his hand back. This is a grown-up balloon. You can play with it when you're older, Lucas said, slowly blowing it up. He handed the inflated condom to his son. Don't take it outside, okay? Caleb nodded eagerly, his young eyes filled with excitement and awe. Grown-up balloons were clear and looked like bubbles, much cooler than the ones from the store. Can you watch the kids this afternoon? Aaron and I are going to check on the cafe renovations and look at some preschools. Lily had just emerged from her art studio, rubbing her neck. She saw the balloon in Lucas's hand and froze, her earlobes turning a faint crimson. After a moment, she took 2 steps back toward the studio and waved at him. Honey, come here for a second. In your dreams, Lucas said coldly. He wasn't falling for that. When she called him honey out of the blue, it always meant trouble. He'd bet his life that the second he stepped into that studio, he'd be met with a rocket headbutt. But then Lily ran over and headbutted him anyway, then gestured with her chin toward the little blue box. A little while later, Caleb got tired of the balloon and decided the art studio was his next frontier. Don't bother Mommy when she's drawing. Be careful, or she'll hit you with a rocket headbutt. It hurts. Mommy is Squirtle, Caleb yelled, his little fists clenched in excitement, remembering the cartoon his daddy had shown him last night. Lucas was shocked. The student has become the master. He had been wondering how to get back at her, and now his own son had handed him the perfect opportunity. Lily, your son says you're a Squirtle, he yelled, pushing open the door. Lily looked up at them, her cheeks slowly puffing out like a pufferfish. Caleb frantically waved his hands. I didn't. It was Daddy who... Good boys don't lie, Lucas said. Did you or did you not say Mommy is a Squirtle? I'm your father, he thought. You think I'm going to let you pin this on me? I did, Caleb said, his head bowed. Realizing this was probably the wrong answer, he wrung his fingers and whispered, Mommy, I'm sorry. He looked just like his mother when he was nervous or upset. Lillipad, I choose you. Use rocket headbutt. Lillipad used forehead flick. It's super effective. Lucas narrated, trying not to laugh. He watched Caleb clutch his forehead, his eyes wide with confusion when he realized it didn't hurt at all. Lucas completely lost it. And then he got flicked, too. Lily huffed, giving him a fierce but adorable glare before turning back to her drawing. Honestly, bullying his wife every day was one thing, but now he was bullying his own son. Stella looked up from her picture book at the two exiled boys, a small smile on her face, before returning to her story. It looked like one her mommy had drawn herself. No other kids had one like it. Still, if the crow could fly to the river to get stones, why didn't it just drink from the river? She couldn't figure it out. The people in stories were so silly. Stella posed the question. Sometimes you don't need a reason for things, Lucas said after a moment of thought. It's like asking why someone climbs a mountain. Because it's there. He paused, then continued. When the river in that story eventually dries up, that crow will be the one that survives. You need to think about things more, Stella. No slacking off, understand? Of course, Stella couldn't grasp such a philosophical point. She just shouted excitedly, I want to climb a mountain too. Drink your milk. When you two are a little bigger, Mom and Dad will take you to Mount Rainier, Lucas said softly. He remembered Lily saying she wanted to go back to fulfill a wish she'd made there. She'd been so secretive about it at the time. Maybe she'd finally tell him what it was. Lucas answered her questions patiently, right up until she asked why the little monkey in another story didn't just eat the sesame seeds before carrying the watermelon home. Do you even know what sesame seeds are? No. Go ask your Auntie Claire next time. He was a loss for words. This was a job from magic to defeat magic. He really couldn't keep up with the child's logic. He couldn't just tell her it was for the sake of the plot. She wouldn't understand, and it would kill her curiosity. A little while later, Caleb, tired from playing, ran back to his room to sleep. Dottie, her bodyguard duties complete, returned to the living room and hopped onto Lucas's lap. The cat had grown old and was no longer the timid creature they had first found. She had claimed this house as her own domain. In human years, the silly cat was well into middle age. Lucas needed the pads of her paws for a bit until Dottie wriggled out of his grasp, refusing any more affection before settling down by the floor-to-ceiling windows to sleep. He smiled softly. Lily was much better for cuddling, anyway. That afternoon, Lily and Aaron went off to work on the coffee shop's interior design. Seeing the good weather, Lucas decided to take the two little ones to a nearby park. The park had been built in the last couple of years. It wasn't large, but it had a sandbox and a slide for the kids, and it was only a 2 or 3 minute walk from their home. He and Lily often brought the kids over to run around. As soon as they entered, he heard Caleb shout, Auntie Claire, where? Lucas asked, curious. Caleb pointed to the distant sandbox. There. Lucas's jaw dropped. It was a miracle the kid could recognize her. Claire had rarely gone out after her illness. They usually only saw her at Jason's house. He hadn't even registered her when his eyes scanned the playground. Claire was a year older than the twins and already looked like a little grown-up. Her hair was tied in a ponytail, and she was quietly crouched in the sand, building a mound of dirt. Vanessa was standing nearby, on the phone, though her eyes never left her daughter. Lucas let the twins go play and walked over to Vanessa. Is Claire all better? Pretty much. We just have to be careful with her diet for the next couple of years and make sure it doesn't relapse. Vanessa saw him, hung up the phone, and sighed. She had already learned to walk, and then for the longest time, she couldn't even stand, let alone go outside. I'd never even heard of Hainox purpura before you told me about it. Neither had I, Vanessa said, then glanced sideways at Lucas. He looked so relaxed and carefree, which annoyed her, as she had only just managed to find a moment to herself. Have you started your retirement life before you've even hit 30? She asked suddenly. Retired? I'm just taking it easy, Lucas said with a lazy yawn. Polaris can live off this game for a few more years. I just need to keep things running, right? Well, since you're taking it easy, you can help watch your goddaughter for a bit. I've still got some loose ends to tie up on a case. Lucas. He was starting to regret agreeing to be the godfather. The moment Stella saw Claire, she immediately asked the question that had been bugging her since morning. Claire took the picture book from Stella, scratching her head as she stared at the crow. She'd never noticed that problem when she first heard the story. Yeah, why didn't it just drink from the river? She pinched her chin in thought for a long time. Then a spark of inspiration hit. It's because of the forever chemicals, right? My dad won't let me eat seafood. He says the water is poisonous. She didn't know what forever chemicals were or where they came from, only that she'd heard about them and that you weren't supposed to eat seafood. Stella didn't understand most of it, but she latched onto the word poisonous. Seeing her friend's determined expression, she decided that must be the right answer. No wonder her dad said this crow would be the one to survive. All the others were poisoned by the water. Hey, your mom left, Caleb suddenly said while the two girls were deep in their discussion. Claire's eyes fell, and she nodded slowly. Mom and Dad have to work. Seeing the flicker of sadness on Claire's face, Stella felt a pang of confusion. She realized not every kid had their parents with them all the time like she did. Do both your parents have to work? She asked. Don't yours? My mom draws pictures to support our family. Stella glanced over at Lucas, who happened to be smiling and waving at her. She turned back to Claire and said seriously, "I don't think my dad has a job." A hint of envy flashed in Claire's young eyes before quickly vanishing as she went back to playing in the sand. "Don't be sad, we'll take you to the slide." Caleb suddenly stood up, and Stella, nodding eagerly, took Claire's hand. From the sidelines, Lucas watched the three of them play in the dirt for a while before they set their sights on the slide. A boy 2 or 3 years older than Caleb had claimed it, shoving them away when they approached. "Dad, want to play too?" Caleb said, running over to him for help, though he wasn't crying. "What do you want me to do?" Lucas tilted his head with a half-smile. "I'm a grown-up. You think I can go over there and beat him up?" "I'll go," Claire volunteered, taking her role as the older sister seriously. If she wasn't afraid of getting in trouble, she would have hit him the moment he pushed Caleb. Lucas quickly pulled her back. "Calm down. This little firecracker was definitely her mother's daughter. You have to learn to communicate, you know," he said softly. "Just tell them you want to play, too." But he won't listen. Lucas leaned down with a mischievous grin and gathered the 3 kids around him. "That's because you're not communicating the right way. Now, listen up." A few moments later, just as the boy who had pushed Caleb was about to climb the slide, Stella tugged on his shirt. "Excuse me, can the 4 of us play for a little while?" The boy turned around fiercely, raising his fist. "This slide is mine. You can't play." He was about to shove her when he realized something was off. "4. 1, 2, 3. Can't you count?" he sneered, looking at Stella as if she were an idiot. "There are 4 of us," Stella insisted, pointing to each person in turn. "This is my brother, this is Auntie Claire, and this is Timmy." "There's no Timmy. There are only 3 of you." Stella tilted her head at him. "You can't see him. He's waving at you," Caleb added with a completely straight face. "Get lost." The boy tried to shoo them away again, but after a moment, he noticed the kids were just standing there, staring at him expressionlessly. He started to feel a chill run down his spine, and then he bolted, running straight home. "See? I told you your father was a menace, didn't I?" That evening, after hearing about the afternoon's event from the kids, this was the first thing Lily said. The 2 little ones thought it over for a moment, then nodded in unison. Mom was right. Seeing them agree, Lily put on a pouty face and said with mock sadness, "That's how he tricked me into being his wife back in the day." Caleb's little face was a mask of shock. He looked at Lucas as if he were a villain from a cartoon. "Don't listen to her nonsense." Lucas, who was adjusting the projector, quickly turned to defend his reputation. This goofball had the nerve to call him a menace, conveniently forgetting that these 2 kids were the result of her own happy cooperation. Just as he spoke, the finicky projector finally lit up, displaying a show from his own childhood, Power Rangers. Making the kids watch Cocomelon was a form of psychological torture for him. This was much better. He missed the days of cartoons like Avatar, The Last Airbender, Justice League Unlimited, and Samurai Jack. The shows from his era were leagues better than what was on now. Besides, what man could say no to the Megazord? Today's kids' shows, despite better animation, offered nothing of value. The more they advanced, the worse they got. "Do you like it?" Lucas asked after a while, seeing Caleb and Stella's eyes glued to the screen. "I love it," Caleb shouted first. Lucas was satisfied. A classic is a classic. He loved this show as a kid, and now his own children did too. There wasn't a man alive who didn't want to be a Power Ranger or a Kamen Rider. "Caleb, it's fine to like it, but don't go around telling other kids you're the Red Ranger, okay? That's just silly. They might tease you about it for the rest of your life." Lucas whipped his head around at the sound of the voice and saw Lily watching him, a sweet smile on her face. When she noticed him looking, she playfully stuck out the tip of her tongue. Lucas felt his toes curl in embarrassment. "Seriously? Who are you calling out right now, you goofball?" That was nearly 20 years ago. He was about to go tickle her when he saw she was holding their daughter, looking back at him with an innocent expression. Their eyes, a perfect match, blinked at him in unison. It was almost enough to melt his heart. Lucas froze, his body tense to pounce, then slowly relaxed back onto the sofa. "Fine. I'll deal with you after the kids are asleep." The afternoon had worn them out, and before 9 o'clock, the 2 little ones were already fighting to keep their eyes open. When Lucas looked again, Caleb was already asleep on the couch, and Stella was yawning, her mouth wide open. "Mommy, I'm sleepy," she mumbled, rubbing her eyes and burrowing back into Lily's arms. "You 2 should go sleep in your own rooms." "Your Auntie Claire already sleeps in her own room, you know," Lucas said suddenly. The kids weren't so little anymore, and their king-size bed was starting to feel crowded with 4 people. Sometimes he'd have to think twice before even trying to roll over in his sleep. And no, Stella was instantly wide awake, her eyes welling up with tears. Lily leaned down and kissed her hair. How about mommy goes with you? The little girl thought it over and finally agreed. It wasn't like she had a choice. Her dad never hit her, but there was no telling what kind of trick he'd pull next. Just like how he taught her to trick that mean boy today. After all, he'd managed to trick a mommy this beautiful into being his wife. The night deepened. The lights in the windows of the distant buildings went out one by one, leaving only a scattered few still glowing. Lucas sat on the bed, playing on his phone, leaving the bedroom door open. After all this time together, they had that kind of understanding. Just because they had kids didn't mean he had to sleep alone. Not a chance. A little while later, the sound of storytelling from the next room grew faint, then disappeared entirely. Lucas glanced at the doorway and, right on cue, saw Lily, her hair down, tiptoeing toward their room like a thief before slipping inside. Before he could say a word, she had burrowed under the covers, crawling up from the foot of the bed until her head popped out. "So warm," Lily said with a smile. "Of course it's warm. You've got a personal bed warmer. Will they cry when they wake up tomorrow?" Lucas considered it. "Even if they do, we can't give in. If they figure out crying works, you're in for a rough time." Lily pressed her lips together and nodded. When it came to raising the kids, she always deferred to him. Caleb and Stella didn't cry as much as other kids precisely because they knew it had no effect on Lucas. On her, however, it was very effective. Sometimes seeing them cry made her want to cry, too, and she'd have to hide so they wouldn't see. His mother, Emily, had once told him that in parenting, one person had to play the good cop and the other the bad cop. Lucas had quietly taken on the role of bad cop, leaving the role of the beloved, gentle parent to Lily. But the truth was, Lucas was the softest one of all. After a moment, Lily started to feel sleepy herself. She pecked him on the cheek and whispered goodnight. Lucas didn't reply. He just silently drew the curtains. Lily wrapped herself tightly in the blanket, her voice nervous. Honey, is it too late to apologize?" Lucas gave her a perfectly harmless smile. "What do you think?" By the end of April, the weather was mild and pleasant, perfect for a trip. In a few months, Caleb and Stella would be starting kindergarten, so Lucas decided to get them some practice by taking Lily on a vacation. That day, a light rain fell over Seattle. Puddles formed on the streets, reflecting the dim sky like mirrors. Early in the morning, Lucas brought the whole family over to Emily's house. Sophia Thompson was there, too, having heard he was dropping off the kids. At some point, Emily had convinced her to dye her hair. Her once gray strands were now a glossy black, and her cheerful demeanor made her look years younger. After a while, seeing it was getting late, Lucas stood before the kids and knelt to stroke their heads. They were still too young for travel to broaden their horizons. It would just mean constantly chasing after them. It was better to leave them at home and take them on trips when they were older. Dad has to go with Mom to get inspiration for her art. "If Mom has ideas, she can earn money to buy you toys, understand?" he said, spinning a lie. All he could think about was a few days of just the two of them. "Be good and listen to Grandma and Nana, okay?" "Okay," Caleb mumbled, not making a fuss at all. He just called out, "Go, Mommy." Stella blinked, not entirely convinced. But when she saw the unshed tears in Lily's eyes and her reluctant expression, she believed it. "Bye-bye, Mommy and Daddy." Stella waved obediently. "We're leaving," Lucas said, taking Lily's hand and walking to the door. He turned back and made a gesture to Emily. "Call if anything happens. We'll fly right back. Just say you're ditching the kids to go on vacation." "Don't make it sound so noble," Emily muttered under her breath. "Please, this is for the sake of art. Can you really call that a vacation?" Emily rolled her eyes with a smile, then said to Lily, "Go have a good time. The kids are older now. It's fine to stay a few extra days." "See, Mom? Caleb's being so good. My son is better than your son, right?" Lucas said, glancing back to see Caleb playing with Stella and her toys. Then he was pushed out the door. When they stepped out of the building, it was still raining. Lily kept looking back over her shoulder, and Lucas had to practically drag her down the street. "We'll be gone for 10 days, maybe more. I can't bear to leave them," she said, looking like a little girl about to be kidnapped. Every few steps, she would plant her feet and look back, her eyes red. What if Caleb and Stella can't sleep? Or what if they get a fever? Lucas grimaced. It wasn't as if the kids had never stayed at their grandparents' house before. This goofball was worrying for nothing. He was willing to bet the two little ones were secretly thrilled to stay with Emily for a few extra days. After all, he and Lily never spoiled them the way Emily did. They couldn't eat whatever they wanted, and they had to use their own spoons at mealtime. But, Lily's lips trembled, as if she had more to say. "Do you want to get ice cream?" he asked directly. The girl, predictably, wiped a tear from her eye, completely forgetting what she was about to say. She let Lucas pull her along, her voice still thick with emotion. "Yes." They went all the way to the high desert in the southwest just to see the stars, sitting together on the vast plains, heads resting against each other, hands intertwined, trying to identify the constellations. It was only then that they discovered the Milky Way was real, a brilliant slash that seemed to tear the night sky in two. You could never see that in Seattle. The photo album Lucas kept for Lily and the kids grew thicker. He sent a picture of her, a black silhouette with arms outstretched against a backdrop of the glittering cosmos, as his phone's wallpaper. In early September, the twins turned 3 and it was time for them to start kindergarten. As always, Lily woke before the alarm, turned it off, tucked Lucas in, and stole a kiss on his cheek before heading to the bathroom. The whole routine was second nature to her. Both kids had inherited Lucas's need for sleep. Every morning, it took a great deal of effort to wake them. They would eventually shamble to the bathroom like two little zombies, brushing their teeth and blowing bubbles at their reflections in the mirror. Of course, before waking the kids, she had to wake the big kid first. Her husband was just as bad at waking up. In a family of 4, she was the only morning person. They were all so lazy. Lily returned to the bedroom and found Lucas still fast asleep. On a whim, she crouched by the bed and studied his face. He really had changed a lot over the years. Nearing 30, he had lost the boyish look of a college student, his features now carrying a mature confidence. The only thing that hadn't changed was that he was still the person she loved most. She suddenly felt that time was even more mischievous than her children. If you weren't paying attention, it would sneak far, far away. By the calendar, they had been married for 5 years. But the thrill she felt when they first got together seemed like it had never faded. After who knows how long, Lucas slowly opened his eyes. He wasn't startled to see her. He just thought for a moment and said, "Do you know what you look like right now?" Lily tilted her head curiously. "What?" A slow grin spread across Lucas's face. "A turtle." A rocket head but jolted Lucas wide awake, completely bypassing the groggy stage. It was as effective as a bucket of ice water in winter, a true moment of clarity. Seeing Lucas's cheerful grin, Lily suspected he actually enjoyed being headbutt, which put her in a difficult position. She worried about hurting him, but also worried that if she didn't use enough force, she'd just be giving him a cheap thrill. It was a real dilemma. "Is the coffee shop all set up?" Lucas asked, getting up and stretching. He had only ever been responsible for learning things on Lily's behalf. He'd never interfered with the actual design. Lily nodded lightly. "Aaron did a beautiful job. I'll take you to see it after we drop off the kids." "Okay," Lucas agreed, heading to the bathroom. A moment later, Lucas came out humming a strange, off-key tune. The melody had been stuck in his head all night, a maddeningly catchy earworm from a video he'd watched before bed. He walked into the living room and froze. Lily was standing at the dining table, untying her apron. With a gentle pull of the tie in her hair, her waterfall of glossy black hair cascaded down, accentuating her slender waist and elegant back. Has her domestic goddess stat been maxed out? Looking at Lily's graceful figure, Lucas swallowed hard, suddenly suspecting this goofball was some kind of vampire, sucking the life out of him. While he hadn't changed as drastically as other men his age, he was still marching toward his 30s. Lily, on the other hand, just seemed to get more captivating. He came up behind her, wrapped his arms around her waist, and buried his face in the crook of her neck, taking a deep breath. Lily felt a tickle on her neck and shrank back, pushing at him with a smile. "Hey, stop fooling around. Go wake the kids." "It's still early," Lucas said. After a sufficient amount of groping, he let her go, satisfied, and headed toward the kids' rooms. "Caleb, time to get up." "I know." He had seen the little rascal run out for something earlier, so he knew Caleb was already awake. He skipped his room and went to Stella's. Lucas knocked lightly on her door. "Stella, wake up." When there was no response, he knocked again, harder this time. He and Lily exchanged a look. Why was she so quiet today? He pushed the door open to find the room empty, except for a large teddy bear on the bed. Lily gasped, her face instantly filled with panic. "Where's Stella? Don't you have any faith in me? Where could a kid that small possibly go?" Lucas pulled her into Caleb's room, and sure enough, Stella was there. As soon as they entered, they heard a humming noise. Lucas followed the sound and saw the two little ones crouched on the bed, pointing a hairdryer at the sheets. A leaf-shaped wet patch was still visible. No prizes for guessing what that was. "Who taught you to use this to dry it?" Lucas was baffled. A kid this age was supposed to curl up under the covers and try to dry it with body heat. They were supposed to be as foolish as he had been. How did they think of a hairdryer? Were his kids geniuses, or had times just changed? Mommy uses this to dry her hair," Stella said, lowering her head, her voice tiny. "I wet the bed," Caleb suddenly shouted. It's your room. Who else would have done it? Lucas glanced at the stunned Lily, half amused, half exasperated. I'm asking whose brilliant idea this was. Caleb secretly glanced at Stella, saw she looked scared, and stepped in front of his sister. It was mine, he stammered. Lucas smirked and ruffled Caleb's hair. A kid's lie could never fool an adult. From their reactions, it was obvious Caleb had wet the bed, but the hairdryer idea had to have come from Stella. He didn't say anything else, just gave each of them a gentle flick on the forehead. You silly kids. Go take a shower. Out on the balcony, he saw Lily hanging the bedding out to dry. He held up the hairdryer and couldn't help but remark, using this to dry it. I have no idea how Stella came up with that. You think our daughter's a genius. Lily bit her lip, embarrassed. When I was little, I tried to dry it with a fan while my parents were out. Lucas looked at his wife in surprise. Lily quickly averted her gaze, pretending she hadn't said a thing. Case closed. He thought his kids were geniuses, but it turned out to be genetics. Looks like she gets it from you. The kindergarten the twins were attending was right next door. They had chosen this house specifically for its proximity to the international school. The two kids didn't cry or fuss on the way. They skipped ahead of their parents, their backpacks bouncing, looking perfectly behaved. Lucas watched their retreating backs and snorted to himself. You have no idea what you're in for, do you? The next decade plus of your life is going to be miserable. When they reached the kindergarten gate, Lucas noticed Lily's eyes were red. Lucas quickly pulled Lily in front of him and whispered in her ear, the kids aren't even crying. Why are you the one tearing up? He couldn't help but smile. The kids were starting kindergarten, and here was their mother acting like a little crybaby. It was unbearably cute. Lily sniffled and rubbed her eyes. I'm not crying. She knelt and took her children's hands. You have to be good in there, okay? If you miss home, just try to be brave. Don't cry. Mommy will be the very first one here to pick you up. Lucas and the two kids listened in a daze as she went on and on. He looked down at Caleb, who was practically vibrating with excitement, and then at Stella, who was sucking her thumb while silently observing the other sobbing children. It seemed Lily's worries were unfounded. Master Carter had full confidence in his parenting methods. If you can go a week without crying, Mom and Dad will take you to an amusement park. How about that? He said softly. The twins' eyes lit up. Okay. Just as Lily was about to speak again, Jason sent a message telling them to wait a bit. He wanted the three kids to go in together so they'd be less likely to cry if they saw a familiar face. Claire hadn't started kindergarten earlier due to her illness, so she was starting with the twins this year. Lucas hadn't thought Caleb or Stella would cry anyway, but he waited. It took Jason nearly half an hour to arrive, jogging up with Claire in tow. Showing up late with your kid on the first day of school? Lucas said with disdain. Jason, panting, waved his hand. So busy. Vanessa was supposed to bring her, but something came up with her case at the last minute. I had to rush back from the office. He pinched the twins' cheeks. It'd be great if the three of them could be in the same class. That's easy enough. We could just ask. Claire, you're the big sister. You have to take care of your little brother and sister, you hear? Jason said, rubbing Claire's head. He certainly hadn't forgotten that his daughter had chosen Caleb during her first grab ceremony, and while he'd have to guard against that little rascal in the future, it was still too early. Kids don't remember things anyway. Nothing to worry about. No problem at all. Uh-huh. Claire nodded obediently. For the past few years, Stella and Caleb were the only friends she had. In her mind, she had grown up with them, and she took her role as big sister very seriously. As they were talking, a loud wail erupted nearby. Lucas glanced over at the kids, whose sobs shook the heavens. They were sitting on the ground, refusing to be budged by their parents. He was glad his two were so well behaved. Stella just watched quietly. Then she noticed that a crying child was given a few pieces of candy by a teacher. Lucas sensed something and looked down at his daughter, a bad feeling rising in his chest. Oh no! Sure enough, after less than 2 seconds of preparation, Stella burst into tears, wailing so loudly that nothing Lily said could comfort her. But Lucas knew exactly what this little girl was up to, so he didn't even bother with a token attempt to console her. Caleb, seeing this, scratched his head and pulled all the fruit candy out of his pocket, stuffing it into his sister's hands. Stella quickly pocketed the candy, silently wondering how her brother could be so foolish. Then she wiped her eyes and continued to cry. This was one of the top kindergartens in Seattle, and the teachers were professionals. One of them quickly noticed the new disturbance and came over to help Lily. There. Don't cry, sweetie. The young teacher with a ponytail cooed, placing another piece of candy in Stella's hand. Seeing Lily's anxious face, she added confidently, it's normal for children to have a hard time adjusting at first. The teachers here are very experienced. You don't need to worry. Just as she was about to demonstrate her professionalism, Stella popped the candy into her mouth and abruptly stopped crying. "Mommy, this candy isn't as good as the kind Daddy buys you," the little girl said softly. The kindergarten teacher's expression froze. A little while later, Jason dropped off his daughter and rushed away. Claire was well-behaved, standing quietly by Lily's side without shedding a single tear. When it was time, Lucas watched the three little ones walk into the school together. He couldn't resist a huge stretch and a loud declaration. "From now on, the daytime is our private world." After being on call 24/7 for the kids, he was finally free. Lily rushed over and clamped a hand over his mouth. "They're not that far away yet," she hissed. Only when the kids had disappeared from view did she let go. That evening, after picking up the kids, the couple spent a few hours at the coffee shop working on the design until the sky was completely dark. "We're out of salt. I'll go buy some," Lily said as they walked home. "I'll go." Caleb raised his hand high, even though he didn't know what salt was. "You're still too little. You can help Mommy when you're bigger," Lily said with a smile. "I'm already big." Caleb's expression was serious. His teacher had even praised him for being a mature little boy today. Lucas looked up at the dimming sky and thought for a moment. Let him go. Will it be safe? Lily watched Caleb walk off, a worried look on her face. "Of course not. You take Stella home. I'll follow him secretly." Inside the Bayside Towers Community Park, Claire was sitting alone on a swing, her head bowed in silence. The cool evening breeze brushed against her arms and neck, sending little shivers through her. She was suddenly very scared, but she was even more scared of being at home. Their apartment was huge. It took a long time just to walk from her bedroom to the living room. But besides her and the housekeeper, there was no one else there. She thought that if she were good enough, her parents would spend more time with her. But for some reason, the better she behaved, the less time they spent at home. Now, she had been picked up from school by the housekeeper only to find she was all alone. Claire watched the cars drive past the community gate, her gaze fixed until the headlights blurred into a swarm of fireflies. "Auntie, what are you doing at my house?" A familiar voice sounded next to her. Seeing Caleb, Claire quickly wiped away her tears. An older sister couldn't cry in front of her little brother. She didn't admit she had run away from home, intending to go to her godmother's house, only to lose her nerve when she got downstairs. "Why are you by yourself?" she asked, changing the subject. Caleb puffed out his chest, excited for a chance to show off. "I went to buy salt for my mommy and daddy." "Oh," Claire nodded. "Huh, isn't that a really impressive thing to do? Why isn't she surprised at all?" Caleb felt a little deflated. Claire gently rocked the swing, looking up at the night sky. Her young eyes were calm, betraying a maturity beyond her years. The stars dotted the dark expanse, and though they looked dense, a closer look revealed how far apart they truly were. Each star was alone, just like her. "Aren't you going home?" she asked after a while, noticing Caleb had sat on the swing next to her. "If I go, you'll be all alone here," Caleb said, looking around. "There are no lights." He shouldn't have looked. Now that he had, he was starting to get really scared. The walk home had been lit by streetlights, but here it was pitch black. He felt like a man-eating monster was about to jump out from somewhere. He often felt that way at night when his feet were sticking out from under the covers. Caleb shivered. He really wanted to go home, but his mom had told him to be a kind and gentle person. "I'm your sister. I'm a year older than you," Claire said stubbornly. "I'm not afraid of the dark." A determined look flickered in Caleb's eyes. "I'm afraid you'll be afraid," he said simply. Claire was speechless, staring at him for a long time. In her star-reflecting eyes, a tear began to glisten. Lucas had been following his son the whole time and had witnessed the entire scene. The next step was obvious. Some parents were just plain negligent, and drastic measures were required. After a long wait, the call finally connected. "Jason, what the hell is wrong with you?" Lucas barked without waiting for a reply. Jason, who had just managed to free up a moment to answer his phone, was completely baffled by the unprovoked verbal assault. But Lucas was usually level-headed. An outburst like this meant something was seriously wrong. "What's gotten into you? Why are you yelling at your old man?" he asked, confused. "Your daughter is out here all by herself in the dark, and nobody's watching her. You're a real piece of work, you know that." Lucas cupped the phone's microphone, trying to keep his voice down. "My son just happened to find her. What if she'd been kidnapped? What would you do then? Or are you not worried because your dad's the police chief?" Holy crap. Jason was so stunned he could barely speak. "Wait there. I'm coming to get her now." "Forget it. She's my daughter now. I'm taking her home for dinner." Jason was cut short. After so many years, he knew Lucas's tone meant there was no immediate danger. Before he could respond, Lucas asked, "What is wrong with you two? You used to fight all the time because you were too busy, and now you're just busy together. Look, it's just for a little while." I'll explain later. I'm coming to get her. We'll talk after dinner. Hanging up, Lucas turned his attention back to the two kids. He couldn't help but smile, a complex mix of emotions welling up inside him. His son was like a little radar. Lucas never saw her, but Caleb always knew where Claire was. But that wasn't the important part. The most ridiculous thing was, where did this kid learn how to comfort a little girl? Just a moment ago, Claire had been secretly wiping away tears, and now they were swinging and chatting away. The Carter family line was supposed to be nothing but honest, straightforward guys. He checked the time, confident that Caleb wouldn't suspect he was being followed. He walked over. What took you so long to buy salt? Mom and Dad were worried sick. Master Carter's acting skills, honed over many years, were now flawless. Caleb, whose eyes were still glistening with fear, let out a sigh of relief when he saw him. To be honest, not many kids aren't afraid of the dark, and Lucas was surprised he had managed to stay put for so long. The boy clearly took after his mother, with a stubborn streak of his own. He glanced at Claire, who was also shivering. Geez, you two are just huddling together for warmth, aren't you? If I went home, Annie would be all alone, Caleb said in his soft, childish voice. You silly kid. Why didn't you just bring her home with you? You learned how to use the elevator, didn't you? She said she wouldn't go. Lucas nodded slowly and lifted Claire off the swing. Caleb hadn't yet learned that girls are creatures of contradiction, and Lucas wasn't about to explain it to him. Caleb's girlfriend. I'm really not mad. You don't have to comfort me. Caleb, okay. 10 minutes later, girlfriend. You must not love me anymore. We're breaking up? Caleb, but I do love you. Girlfriend. Then why didn't you come comfort me? Lucas chuckled at his own imagined scenario. Kid, if you don't figure this out soon, you've got a long road ahead of you. His own wife was so much better. She never played those kinds of games. You could tell if Lily was mad just by checking if her cheeks were puffed out. She never really learned how to be angry. After years of being spoiled by him, the most she'd do was give him a little headbutt, and even then, she held back. Godfather, I am running away from home. Claire tried to explain, emphasizing her professionalism. A runaway child should stay outside. Is there a rule that says a runaway can't go to her godfather's house? Lucas asked softly. Claire was confused. Her little mind couldn't come up with a rebuttal. You should learn from your sister. Don't be a silly kid. Even if you run away, you shouldn't make yourself miserable. This girl was definitely her father's daughter, stubbornly honest. A runaway is a runaway, and she probably would have ended up eating out a dumpster with a homeless person if he hadn't shown up. When he was a kid, he'd saved up a special fund for running away that he never touched otherwise. When the time came, he'd grab it, find a nice spot, and eat snacks all day. Then he'd go home, and Emily would cry and promise never to hit him again. As for whether she meant it, as mentioned before, women are creatures of contradiction. Muttering about their foolishness, Lucas, with one child in his arms and the other holding his hand, walked under the halo of a streetlight, casting 3 long shadows before disappearing into the warm light of the apartment building. It was the tail end of summer, and the night was still alive with the chirping of insects, a sound that only made the moment feel more peaceful. Dad, I brought back the salt. Caleb finally remembered his original mission. Amazing. Mom will be so happy. After dinner, Lily took the plates to the kitchen. Lucas saw the 3 kids playing with toy cars on the floor, gave each of them a small pudding pop, and went to help his wife. You never ran away from home as a kid. Lucas was shocked. Nope, Lily said, washing the dishes. Her ponytail, which she had put up just for chores, swayed back and forth. I was a very timid child. I never dared to go far. I should take you to experience it sometime. If you use that as an excuse to ditch the kids, our moms will kill you, won't they? As they chatted, Lucas saw Caleb tiptoe into the kitchen. Mommy, can I have another one? Caleb knew Lucas was a lost cause, so he went straight to the soft-hearted one. You'll get a tummy ache if you eat too many. How about we have another one tomorrow? Caleb wiped the drool from his mouth and obediently nodded. Just then, Stella poked her head around the doorframe. I'm not afraid of a tummy ache. Can you give it to me? Lily's brain nearly short-circuited. She shook her head. And no, that's not okay either. Mommy would feel bad. Stella's lip quivered, ready to cry, but she thought better of it. Other kids got whatever they wanted when they cried, but for her and her brother, it was useless. Their dad would just call them silly. In this house, only Mom's tears worked. Dad would immediately comfort her. And me and my brother didn't cry at school, Stella ventured quietly. Lucas thought for a moment and finally nodded. All right, just this once. This little girl was much sharper. She had a shot at being the second smartest person in the family. Just as the twins were about to run off excitedly, Lucas added, Don't take any extra. I've already counted how many are in there. Lily fiddled with her fingers, feeling like Lucas was mocking her for stealing ice cream when she was pregnant and blaming it on Dottie. I didn't, Caleb shouted. How did Dad know he was going to sneak one? Yes, you did. How do you know everything I'm thinking? Caleb couldn't hold back his curiosity. He suspected his dad had mind-reading powers. How many years have you been a son? Lucas scoffed. Your old man was a professional troublemaker for over 20 years. You think I can't handle you? Caleb, I don't get it, but it sounded impressive. After all, his dad said it with such pride and confidence. Back in the living room, Caleb wolfed down his pudding pop, his mind consumed with the thought of having another one. The toy cars had lost their appeal. If only you could eat toy cars. What's wrong? Claire asked, tilting her head at him. Caleb pouted and shoved the useless car away. I want another pudding pop. You can have mine. I haven't eaten it yet. Caleb looked down at the extra pudding pop in his hand, then up at her confused. You don't want it? The treat that he and his sister dreamed about all day, the one they were only allowed to have one of, Annie Claire didn't even like it. Claire swallowed hard, then forced herself to look away. I don't want it. I'm the big sister, after all. Stella, still eating her own snack, blinked her big, watery eyes, a thoughtful expression on her face. Jason and Vanessa picked up Claire together. The night deepened. In the bedroom, Lucas was yawning, about to go to sleep, when Lily pulled an unopened cosplay costume out of the closet. He didn't know what game it was from, but it looked familiar. The important thing was it was a little revealing. The even more important thing was it was for a male character. He was instantly wide awake, clutching the blanket to his chest. What do you think you're doing? Lucas said frantically. I'm warning you, Miss Thompson, this is deeply disturbing behavior. If this goofball forced him to wear this today, tomorrow she'd probably try to put him in a dress. But you're always making me wear cosplay for you, she said, tilting her head. No, doing that in this outfit is just too weird. I can't accept it. Lucas couldn't bring himself to do it. I'm not asking you to do that in it. Lily's face flushed red. She hadn't even been thinking about that when she saw his huge reaction. This is for research. The game company sent it over, and I thought I could use you to get some inspiration for the character's new skin. Lillipad, was not like Lucas. Research was research. She would never use an outfit like this for that kind of thing. At most, there would be some touching and hugging. But that would just be incidental. You call this research? Lucas continued to protest. If word gets out that the billionaire founder of Polaris is wearing this, how am I supposed to live? Seeing he still wouldn't agree, Lily braced herself on the bed, leaned over, and pressed him down, whispering in his ear that slinky black dress in your shopping cart. I'll let you buy it. Why didn't you say so sooner? The reputation of Polaris's founder was, after all, an external concern. Lily's happiness was what mattered most. Lucas Carter always spoiled his wife. Just as he was about to change, the bedroom door creaked open. Mommy Stella tiptoed in, her voice small and sad, with a hint of a whine. Lily sat on the edge of the bed and pulled Stella into her arms. What's wrong, sweetie? She asked softly. Mommy, when are you going to give me a big sister? Lucas and Lily. The coffee shop opened at the end of the year. There was no grand opening ceremony with firecrackers to disturb the neighbors, and no advertising. The shop simply appeared on the waterfront road, its exterior elegant and serene, with a few potted plants by the door. At first glance, it was unassuming, projecting an air of peaceful detachment, just like its owner. To be honest, if they had wanted to promote it, a single post from Lily's account with its million-plus followers would have had the place packed day in and day out, turning it into a pilgrimage site for otaku everywhere. Even though she had posted wedding photos long ago, it hadn't dampened her fans' enthusiasm. These days, even artists had die-hard stans. It was terrifying. The thought of that was horrifying for a social recluse like Lily, so she had no intention of promoting the shop at all. Lucas shook himself from his thoughts and walked inside. As soon as he entered, he heard a sweet, slightly affected voice. Welcome. Aaron looked up, saw it was him, and promptly flipped him bird. Lucas suspected she wanted to take back the welcome. Keep that up, and I'll make you do it every time I walk into the office. You got a mortgage now, so it's not like you can quit, Lucas said calmly. Aaron was renovating the condo downstairs from them, and she was carrying a hefty loan. He and Lily had offered to help her with the down payment, but she had stubbornly refused, insisting on letting the bank make its money. Aaron was incredibly clear-headed that way. They'd been friends for years, but they never pried into each other's business. Only someone who has taken out a mortgage knows how terrifying the interest is. But at least Aaron would be able to pay it off early, which was better than most. Are you even human? Aaron ground her teeth, wondering what Lily ever saw in this jerk. Tired of her nagging, Lucas put on a stern face to scare her. Ms. Thompson, you wouldn't want to default on your mortgage. Now would you? Lily, Aaron called out, running to find Lily to complain. With her gone, Lucas finally had a chance to look around. The interior design had been decided long ago. Pure white tables and chairs, huge glass windows with a clear view of Puget Sound, and a simple, bright style throughout. Bookshelves lined the walls, making it a quasi-library. It was the kind of environment that made it easy to quiet one's mind. Lily had set up some of her equipment here and would often draw in the shop when she had free time. The truth was Lucas didn't care if the coffee shop turned a profit. It was just a fun project to make Lily happy. After all, a shop that only sold a few cups of coffee a day was bound to fail. But he had never expected Lily to be so averse to losing money that she had even thought that through. Because the shop was so close to the water and had a great view, it was a place office workers and couples on walks would easily pass. So, the shop's main business was actually breakfast and afternoon tea. He never imagined that the two of them, choosing a location and designing the interior themselves, would actually make it work so well. It was 3 in the afternoon, and the place was quite busy. Lily heard the commotion and came out from the back, holding a plate of creme brulee. She scooped up a piece and brought it to his lips. It was sweet and smooth, melting in his mouth with a delicious, indescribable milky flavor. Lucas loved it because it wasn't cloying. She smiled sweetly. Is it good? I remember you mentioned wanting to eat this a while ago, so I learned how to make it. It's amazing, Lucas nodded, though the level of deliciousness didn't quite match her casual learn how to make it. She had clearly put a lot of effort into it. But when had he said he wanted to eat this? He couldn't even remember. He had been craving it, though. Aaron, seeing that Lily had no intention of defending her, lost her anger and went back to being a third wheel. Don't be so mean to Aaron, Lily chided gently. She was a huge help when I was trying to win you over back in the day. Lucas paused. Wait a minute. Who won over whom? After all his hard work playing the long game, how had he become the one who was pursued? I pursued you, the girl said firmly, her tone leaving no room for doubt. Didn't I pursue you? You're misremembering. Impossible. At the time, Aaron, listening to them argue over this bizarre point, felt her vision start to blur. That's enough, you too, she finally shouted. Oh my God, just kill me. Kill them all. Please, someone. I told you a long time ago. I like you far more than you can ever imagine. Lily cut off the lengthy debate by poking Lucas's cheek with her finger, giving him no chance to argue. In the end, Lucas was never able to settle the question of who had pursued whom, even though the answer was crucial. His reputation as master carder was on the line, after all. You two have been married for years, and you're still putting on this show? Is it fun? Huh? Is it? Aaron couldn't help but interrupt again. She couldn't stand the sickeningly sweet smell of their love. Before these two got together, they were both single while being mutually obsessed with each other. What was there to argue about? Who was more down bad? Ugh, disgusting. Lucas turned to her with a faint smile. You seem a little worked up. Aaron snorted in disdain, suddenly at a loss for words. After all these years, am I still just a part of you two's role-playing? Thinking back, she had been forced to witness their PDA for years, shipping them for just as long. These two were truly ridiculous, still acting like they were dating after years of marriage. You could just get a boyfriend, you know, Lucas said bluntly. Aaron suddenly suspected he was provoking her. She waved her hand dismissively. I'm not in a hurry. I'm only 25 this year. Only 25? Lily tilted her head at Aaron. We were only 19 when I first met Lucas. Aaron was struggling. Lily, probably because she was a mother now, had become even more of a worrier than before. At home, her parents pressured her. Outside, her best friend pressured her. My God, how did this happen? Lucas didn't speak, just silently counted on his fingers, his eyes raised in thought. Are you telling fortunes over there? Aaron asked. No, Lucas shook his head. I was just calculating how many years that guy Leo has liked you. It had to be at least 5 or 6 years. To be honest, the guy's way of thinking was extraordinary. You couldn't say he was just indulging in self-pity, because when he saw Aaron wasn't interested, he never even tried to pursue her, and he didn't seem to care whether they got together or not. But you also couldn't say he wasn't serious, because he would probably never date anyone else before Aaron did. It was actually the best approach. He was proving the depth of his feelings, while also proving he could be happy on his own. Lucas didn't know if Leo had stumbled upon this strategy by chance, or if he had truly figured it out. He had never given Leo any pointers. After all, Aaron was his friend too. It was his duty to vet her potential partners. Are you two trying to play matchmaker? A flash of annoyance crossed Aaron's eyes. I don't play matchmaker for anyone, Lucas said bluntly. If they have a little fight or break up, they might not say anything to my face, but deep down, they'll blame it all on me. Aaron was stunned. How had this guy become so shrewd before he even hit 30? He was so clear-eyed about everything. Now that I look at you, you haven't aged much either. Aaron sized up Lucas and gave him a thumbs up. Lily has trained you well. Lucas grimaced. Please refrain from saying things that could be easily misinterpreted and wouldn't pass censorship. Thank you. Halfway through their conversation, someone at a nearby table called for an order. Just as Aaron was about to grab a menu, Lucas, on a whim, took it from her. He kind of wanted to experience it for himself. Who could understand the pain of only ever having been the boss since leaving school? Hello, what can I get for you? Lucas asked politely. I feel like I just had bad luck on a gotcha pull and got a male character. The guy joked good-naturedly as he ordered. An iced Americano, please. Thanks. But Master Carter never took a loss. Lucas raised an eyebrow. Actually, your luck is very good. Why? Because besides me, you will never meet a waiter richer than you in your entire life. Damn. Want to see my bank account? No thanks. You can get back to experiencing life, the guy said with a complicated expression. He had seen the way the long-haired girl looked at this guy and was already dying of envy. Now it felt like a rock had been dropped in his stomach. When Lucas returned after delivering the coffee, the two girls were sitting at the counter, drawing. They didn't seem to have heard his question. First, draw a female hand, lying on a bedsheet. Then draw a larger one, covering it from behind, with each finger slipping between hers. Make it look like it's gripping hard. Aaron guided her pen, a wicked smile playing on her lips. Think that's enough? Watch this. Add some wrinkles to the bedsheet under her fingertips and a few drops of sweat on the hand. See, you can make it sexy with just two hands, as long as you have enough imagination. Can't you just picture the position now? The biggest change in Aaron over the years was that she had gone from being a 19-year-old expert to a 25-year-old expert. Lily stared, wide-eyed, looking like she was about to be corrupted. She quickly looked away. Aaron could look at the drawing without flinching. After all, it was the product of her own imagination. But Lily couldn't. She had actually experienced it. A moment later, the two girls finally noticed him out of the corner of their eyes and quickly deleted what they were drawing. Draw another $10 worth. The kids will love it, Lucas said softly. Lily, who had been watching Aaron draw the whole time, was the one who jumped, turning away so she wouldn't have to look at him. You're so quiet. Aaron admonished him. Aren't you a pervert? I asked you before. Why haven't you hired anyone? Lucas shrugged. But you two were too focused. No one answered me. F for now. Aaron is helping out. She's the assistant manager, Lily said, her face turned away, tucking a stray strand of hair behind her ear and revealing its bright red tip. Her shy expression made you want to drag her into a dark room. I'm just a lowly artist anyway. When things aren't too busy, I'll just work remotely from here, Aaron quickly explained. She was genuinely a little afraid that Lucas might optimize her out of a job if he got annoyed. She still had a massive mortgage to pay off. Lucas nodded. As the boss who set the precedent for slacking off, he certainly didn't care about that. Can you two handle it? He asked. Of course not. We'll probably need to hire 2 or 3 more people, Aaron said seriously, then shot him a mischievous grin. Don't worry, we'll only hire girls. Damn, Lucas thought to himself, as expected of the lead artist who could afford a waterfront penthouse. As Polaris continued to do well, Aaron had become more and more ambitious lately. No, that's not right. She was just making progress. If you came to help every day, we could hire 1 less person. Aaron said suddenly. Lucas could make better latte art than she could, even after all her practice. He was just lazy. How am I supposed to do that? I have to work. I'm very busy. You're busy? Haven't you noticed I've been going to the office more often lately? What if the kids think I'm unemployed? Lucas said with a straight face. He couldn't let his children get the wrong idea. Otherwise, he'd go from being the one who actually supported the family to a loser who lived off his wife's drawings. Luckily, the kids seemed to like him now, so it probably wasn't too late. Aaron pursed her lips. She hadn't expected him to be thinking about that, but she couldn't resist adding, you should at least come until we hire someone, right? You know Lily works like a little ox. Aren't you afraid of tiring out your wife? Just as Lucas was about to speak, Lily frantically waved her hands. I'm not tired. You don't have to come help all the time. Just come sit over there and watch a movie to keep me company. She continued, waving her hands. You don't have to do anything. Just imagining Lucas being nearby was enough to make her happy. She didn't care about anything else. Even though Lily said that, Lucas didn't leave. He stayed and helped. Once the initial novelty wore off, the work became a bit of a torture for him. He was a slacker at heart. Lily and Aaron, on the other hand, were full of energy. They had a clear division of labor. Lily, the social recluse, handled the back, while Aaron, the social recluse, was out front. Lucas felt like Lily had an endless supply of energy these days, drawing, running the shop, taking care of the kids at night. and she was still happy and never complained about being tired. Well, as long as she was happy. Walking over to the wall, he noticed the guitar hanging there. He thought it was just a decoration, but when he took it down, he realized it was real. It's probably been years since I played for her, he murmured to himself. He walked back to the counter and sat down, his hand stroking the strings. The notes felt both familiar and foreign. Lucas decided not to play anything by the National. It was impossible to get tickets to their concerts. Everyone called them an old indie band, but he and Lily hadn't managed to snag a single ticket since they got together. He didn't want to support scalpers, so he had been suffering in silence. In the end, Lucas chose I'm Yours by Jason Mraz. Some classics never get old. The clear, pleasant sound of the guitar filled the coffee shop, not at all out of place. Now and then, someone would lift their phone to secretly record a snippet to share with someone special. A little while later, Erin walked by, humming along, a tray in her hands. She had just passed the counter when she realized something was off. She backed up, step by step, like a video playing in reverse. When did you learn to play the guitar? Erin's face was a picture of shock. You were so terrible back then. Lucas chuckled, his eyes still on the strings. I was doing it on purpose, obviously. How else was I supposed to get rid of you, the third wheel? You're such a jerk. I should have known. Erin rushed to the back and grabbed Lily's arm, shaking her back and forth. Lily, your husband is playing the guitar. I'm listening, Lily said, wiping down a table, an irrepressible smile on her face. She knew. Lucas definitely knew she was listening. After all this time together, how could they not have that kind of connection? The girl smiled faintly, her hands gradually slowing to a stop. She also knew that he was really only playing for her. After playing the few songs he could still remember, Lucas looked up to find two girls standing in front of him. He racked his brain, but couldn't place them. They looked like college students who hadn't graduated yet. Can I get your WhatsApp? One of the long-haired girls asked, holding up her phone. Lucas calmly refused. By the Gregorian calendar, I'm 28 this year. Oh, the girl paused for a moment. That's okay. I like older guys. I've been married for years, Lucas said, exasperated. I have to go pick up my 2 kids from school soon. Please go away. Don't interrupt me while I'm trying to flirt with my wife. The girl bit her lip. That's fine too. Can I still get your WhatsApp? Lucas. His pupils trembled and dilated, his eyes filled with shock. Have I been out of the game for so long? Have I really fallen that far behind the times? Are young people these days so shameless? Just as Lucas was about to refuse again, an arm slipped around his. He turned his head, and of course it was his wife. Hello, can I help you with something? Lily asked, linking her arm through his and looking at the 2 girls with a neutral expression. Was my playing good? I was playing just for you, Lucas said, looking up at her from his seat. Lily slowly leaned down and brought her lips close to his ear. Lucas thought she was going to say it was good, but instead, she made a loud kissing sound right next to his ear. Mwah. Everyone can hear that. Lily's performance made Lucas suspect she had secretly been drinking. The girls who had asked for his number froze, momentarily dazed, as they stared at the coolly dressed girl in the black turtleneck. According to him, she was the mother of 2 children. But you couldn't tell at all. She herself, and probably no one else at her university, was as beautiful as this girl. Hello. Lillipad pressed her advantage. Nothing. The 2 girls felt like they had been caught red-handed. They fumbled to pay and quickly left. Was I okay just now? As soon as they were gone, Lily's composure crumbled. She wrung her hands, turning back into her usual goofy self. Her heart was beating so fast. You were perfect, Lucas said, giving her a thumbs up. Please step on me, my queen. That cool, mature aura she had just now was at least twice as powerful as a drunken Lily. Who could resist that? It was unreal how she could pull off any style. Can you play for me again at home? When other people ask for your number, I get a little jealous, Lily said, hugging his arm and feeding him a spoonful of pudding. Of course, Lucas readily agreed, opening his mouth to accept the bite. He wondered how this goofball had learned to be so forward. He didn't even like sweets that much, but if Lily was feeding him, he'd eat razor blades. The next second, he spit it all out, his face contorted. Tooey, this pudding was sour as hell. He knew it smelled funny. This silly goofball had put vinegar in it. Lucas turned his head just in time to see her running away from the scene of the crime. That little troublemaker. He'd deal with her when they got home. By evening, right before the after-school and after-work rush, the coffee shop was empty except for the 2 of them. Lucas sat lazily on a bench, gazing out the window. It was nearly dusk, and the setting sun cast a golden glow on the rippling surface of Puget Sound. You're a billionaire, and you're working in a coffee shop. If people who know you see this, They'll laugh at you. They'll ask what you're trying to prove, Lily said softly, coming to sit beside him. I'm trying to prove that my wife is happy. Lily fell silent, just pursing her lips and sitting quietly next to him. My wife owning a coffee shop. It reminds me of an anime, Lucas said suddenly. He wondered how many people still remembered it. He was already feeling the nostalgia. Thanks to her work, Lily had caught up on a lot of anime over the years and now understood most of his references. You have a son and a daughter, too, Lily pointed out the similarity. I'm definitely happier, though. Lucas agreed wholeheartedly. While many otaku dreamed of being hit by a truck and reincarnated into an anime world, there were some worlds no one in their right mind would want to go to. Like the one with the retreating dwarf, the one with Martian cockroaches, or the one they were talking about now. They spoke softly, the winter sun streaming into the coffee shop, warm and gentle. After a long day, the moment felt especially peaceful and comfortable. I'm actually a little worried that opening the shop will make me a bad mother, Lily said, looking at the distant sunset and placing her hand on his. The kids are still in kindergarten, and I'm off doing my own thing. It feels a little selfish. That's where you're wrong. You can't hover over kids too much. You have to be gradual, like boiling a frog, Lucas said seriously. You can't turn up the heat too fast, or the kid will rebel. But you can't have it too low either, or it won't have any effect. Lily sat beside him, her chin resting on her hand, listening quietly for a long time before smiling. What are you smiling at? Lucas asked, looking at her strangely. I just felt like smiling. The girl slowly closed her eyes and rested her head on his shoulder. She seemed very tired today, and soon looked like she was about to fall asleep. Lucas wrapped his arm around her slender waist, taking in the clean scent of her hair. He sat there for a long time, feeling an extraordinary sense of peace. This was what love was supposed to be. After the initial passion faded, all that remained were quiet, peaceful afternoons like this one. The thrill that had seized his heart when he confessed his love was like a stone tossed into water, sending out ripples. Though time would eventually calm the surface, the ripples would never truly disappear. The rest of their lives would be the afterglow itself. He suddenly felt a wave of emotion. He had walked with Lily out of her shell all the way to this day. It had taken 7 whole years. Wait, that wasn't right. She had been walking with him, too. Lily wasn't the only one who had come out of the past. After a long pause, Lucas suddenly said, How about you go to the kids' parent-teacher conference? He was terrified the kindergarten would have some inane activity that required parent participation. Lily, how about you just kill me instead? The next day was the kindergarten's parent-teacher conference. Lucas opened his eyes in a half-asleep daze, a heavy pressure on his chest. He thought it was Lily lying on top of him again, but when he looked, it was Dottie. The silly cat no longer slept in her cat bed, instead choosing a random spot that struck her fancy each day. When she woke up, besides playing with the kids, her only activity was eat, eat, eat. He glanced to the side. Lily, of course, was already awake. She was wearing a black turtleneck and light-colored jeans, spinning in front of the mirror. The form-fitting outfit perfectly showcased her slender waist and delicate curves. Paired with her naturally cool expression, she looked both aloof and strangely pure. So beautiful it was intimidating. But that didn't matter. This was his wife. He had been infected by Lily, becoming someone who would die without his lily-pad. Does this outfit look bad on me? Do I look silly? Lily asked softly when she saw he was awake, her brow furrowed with worry. The last time she had cared this much about her appearance was when they got their marriage license. You think it looks bad? Give other people a break, will you? Lucas said, exasperated. When would this woman become aware of her own beauty? You're already dressed like that, and you're still trying to improve? Are you going to a parent-teacher conference or a competition to demoralize the other parents? The kindergarten was holding a meeting, not a beauty pageant. Okay. Hearing his words was like a balm to her soul, but she still felt a little unsure. It was the first parent-teacher conference, and she was worried she would embarrass the kids. Children could be lovely, but some would mock their classmates if their parents were unattractive, had a skin condition, or a disability. She had seen other kids get teased when she was young, and had experienced it herself. No matter how much you loved your parents, it was hard to hold your head high in class. She checked the time. It was past 8, and parents were supposed to arrive at 9. She pushed aside her complicated thoughts and urged him gently, Hurry up and get out of bed. We need to get there early. Come lie down for a bit. Lucas, despite the cold, threw back the covers in invitation. I'm already dressed. Lily knew full well that if she went over, it wouldn't just be for a little while, and they would be late. Aaron had told her that men approaching middle age like to talk about feelings in bed and also developed a fondness for sleeping on the couch. But that rule didn't seem to apply to Lucas. She wondered if it had anything to do with the fact that he had started working out and drinking tea with multivitamins years ago. The man was surprisingly forward-thinking when it came to his vices. "You're not coming?" Lucas said with a stern face. Lily shook her head. Lucas burrowed back under the covers, adopting a when-in-doubt, sleep-it-out posture. "Then I'm not going. I'll go by myself. If I go by myself, I'll die." The girl rushed over, her voice soft and pleading. "Please, Sleepy, don't bother me," Lucas said without opening his eyes. Left with no choice, Lily stood by the bed and stuck out her pretty, bare foot, gently tapping his stomach with her toes. The moment he reached out to grab it, she snatched it back. "Oomph, this man is such a foot fetishist, and he won't even admit it." After Lily had teased him a few more times, Lucas was wide awake. It was too late to go back to sleep. Master Carter realized he had been played. "Hurry up and get dressed. Come out for breakfast," the girl said, pecking him on the forehead before walking out of the bedroom with her hands behind her back, the very picture of a victor. Lily knew, even though Lucas seemed to handle everything with ease, when it came to her, his composure was just a front. His poker face was strong, but his defenses were made of paper. The kindergarten the twins attended wasn't cheap, so events like the parent-teacher conference were grand affairs. Colorful balloons were everywhere, and new cartoon standees had been brought in. At the entrance, they ran into Vanessa, who had just arrived from her law firm. "You two came together." Vanessa smirked at them. Lucas nodded, then asked, "What have you been so busy with these past 6 months?" Claire even ran away from home. "I'm on a case prosecuting William Montgomery. It's been keeping me busy. His hands weren't clean when he was acquiring projects back in the day. It's pretty much what you'd see in a TV drama." Prosecuting. If Vanessa hadn't brought him up, Lucas would have almost forgotten about the man. "He's got a lot on his plate. I can't go into detail, but I'm not going to let him get out again," Vanessa said, her arms crossed, her expression as cold as ever. "Even for Scarl." She trailed off, suddenly a little embarrassed. Lily didn't seem to mind. She just smiled faintly at her. "Good luck. When no one's home, just bring Claire over to my place." Vanessa was taken aback for a moment, then smiled back at Lily. Okay. They didn't linger with Vanessa, who was on the phone. They walked into the kindergarten and saw Stella standing right by the entrance, politely greeting the passing parents. She was well-behaved and cute, but her eyes, unlike the other excited children beside her, were completely deadpan. She had the look of someone being forced to work. She was probably chosen as a greeter by the teachers because she was the prettiest. Seeing that Lily was still in a daze, Lucas quickly took her hand and rushed toward their daughter, planning to surprise her. They both remained silent as they walked past the little girl. "Good morning, sir," Stella said with a bow, then gestured to the side, the motion fluid and practiced. Her voice was gentle, but her face was expressionless, and she didn't even look up. "This way, please." Lucas suspected she didn't even know what this way, please meant. "Our daughter is so well-behaved," Lily whispered in his ear. Just as Lucas was about to nod, he froze. "Wait a minute." He pinched his daughter's jelly-like cheek, squeezing her small mouth into an O. "What did you just call me?" Stella finally snapped out of it, her previously cold face breaking into a smile. "Daddy." When she called out, many of the surrounding parents, especially those who had sons but wanted daughters, turned to look. No one could resist a cute and beautiful little girl. They had just been wondering who her father was, and now they saw him. A unanimous thought crossed their minds. This lucky bastard. His daughter is so cute. Then they saw the mother. The mother is even more beautiful. Damn, what kind of luck does this guy have? Lily had to stifle her laughter for a long time. She knelt and gave Stella a loud kiss on the cheek. "Where's your brother?" Stella's smile vanished. He was stolen by his big sister. The kindergarten didn't have any inane parent participation activities. After everyone was seated, they held a small class meeting where an education expert gave a PowerPoint presentation on child-rearing tips, followed by individual praise for each child. That's right, individual. And without repeating a single word. Honestly, for a class of 20 kids, to be able to go on at length, praising each one from a different angle. It was ridiculous. Clearly, different people were suited for different jobs. He could never do that. Still, to remember what every child had done showed that the kindergarten was very attentive. The only downside of expensive things is that they're expensive. By the end of the meeting, every child had been praised into a state of bliss. Lucas, who had been sleeping on Lily's shoulder for the past half hour, finally woke up and stretched. "Did you notice how well-behaved Stella was today?" Lily asked suddenly, pinching her chin. Lucas looked down at Stella. It seemed she was right. The little girl was usually full of mischief, but today she hadn't even begged for candy. As he was wondering about this, he heard the teacher call out, Claire Miller, Stella Carter, and Evan Shaw, Could your parents please wait a moment? Lucas, question mark. What kind of plot twist was this? It seemed that after so many years of being a troublemaker, it was finally his turn to be called in as a parent. Lucas vaguely remembered being called in for skipping school to go to an arcade. His father, Robert, had been almost 40 at the time. Damn it, it was Scarlett Montgomery who had tattled on both of them back then. But he wasn't even 30 yet. He exchanged a look with Lily. Her clear, beautiful eyes were filled with the same stunned disbelief. Sitting in front of the teacher, Lily kept her head down, fidgeting with her fingers. Lucas thought she looked less like a parent who had been called in and more like a student who had been sent to the principal's office. He suppressed a laugh, wanting to tease her, but then remembered she had probably never been called to the office in her life and decided against it. The teacher saw how nervous she was and quickly reassured her. Please don't be nervous. Your children are very well behaved at school. Stella is incredibly smart, and Caleb has a wonderful personality. They are both wonderful kids. We were even thinking of asking you to share some of your parenting tips. She meant every word. Stella, honestly, she couldn't say it in front of the other parents, but in all her years as a teacher, she had never seen such a clever child. Her brother, Caleb, while not as mischievous, had an exceptionally good personality. A very gentle child. The teacher praised the children again. Vanessa and Lily were thrilled, probably thinking they had been kept behind for special recognition. You could just get to the point, Lucas said suddenly. He had a bad feeling about this. The more the teacher laid it on, the bigger the problem was going to be. Lily might be basking in the praise, but Lucas was all too familiar with this tactic. He used it himself all the time. You can't just tell someone their kid is failing. You have to start with some praise. High school teachers always said a kid was proactive before telling you his grades were terrible. He might not do well in school, but he doesn't cause trouble in class. Or he might skip school and get into fights, but he gets things done. It was like when relatives couldn't praise a child for being smart or good-looking, so they praised them for being tall. A polite teacher always left the parents some face. The teacher suddenly understood where Stella got it from. The children are all very good, but yesterday, during lunch, the three of them got into a fight. Of course, they've made up now. The children are just starting to adapt to a group environment, and I hope you can guide them at home. This requires our joint effort. The parents were all reasonable people. No one made a big deal out of a little scuffle between kids. After leaving the kindergarten, the family of four walked along the waterfront. The sky was growing dark, the clouds thickening, and a cold wind kept finding its way into their collars. Lily and the twins were bundled up in scarves. He was the only one in the family who couldn't stand the feeling of wearing one. Just as a shiver ran down his spine, a scarf appeared before his eyes. Lily had taken hers off. He quickly shook his head. He wondered if other people didn't feel like they were being strangled when they wore one. You too. You weren't bullied, were you? Lily asked timidly after they had walked a ways. If any of the other kids bully you, you have to tell Mommy. Mommy, Daddy will definitely help you. When she was little, she was often quiet, and other kids would toss her backpack over her head or stuff trash in her desk. She was always worried the same thing would happen to her own children. Nope, the twins chirped in unison, still looking happy. Then why did the teacher say you were fighting at school? My sister and I didn't fight. That person tried to steal my sister's cookie during lunch and pushed her. Caleb paused before continuing calmly. And then Auntie Claire beat him up. Caleb was still in awe thinking about it. He had seen other kids fight before, a little pushing and shoving. But Auntie Claire was different. She spun around and kicked him sideways. She was so cool, just like the Power Rangers his dad had shown him. He forgot to ask her if she could morph. Lucas was impressed. He seemed to recall Vanessa saying she had started teaching Claire Taekwondo. Unlike the fake dojos on the street, Vanessa was the real deal. What were you doing when your sister's cookie was stolen? Lucas was more concerned about this. Not that Caleb, as the older brother, had to protect his sister at all costs. He would never teach his children that. Otherwise, Caleb might end up like many older siblings, suspecting he wasn't their real child. But they were the closest people in the world, and he wanted them to understand that. I was distracting the teacher. Caleb nevalit. By the time the teacher came back, my sister had already served justice. Lucas grimaced. So it was a group effort, but from the sound of it, they hadn't even had a chance to plan it. Lucas started to worry. These three were going to be a handful. He couldn't imagine what they'd be like when they grew up. Lily pursed her lips, not saying anything more. She knelt and reminded them again. It's okay with someone who bullies you, but you have to be gentle with other children, understand? Why you always say that, Mommy? The two little ones asked, their eyes wide with confusion. Because if you are gentle with the world. Lily turned her head and exchanged a smile with Lucas. The world will be gentle back to you. The year was drawing to a close, and with the kids out of preschool, the house was in a constant state of cheerful chaos. The sky outside was just beginning to lighten, a sliver of gold bleeding into the pale dawn. Lily was already up, standing before the full-length mirror and brushing her long hair, gently reminding the kids to get dressed. She had originally planned to close the coffee shop during winter break. Even if Lucas had time to watch the kids, she didn't want him to be that exhausted. Besides, Lucas and the children were far more important than the shop or anything else she wanted to do. Thankfully, Caleb and Stella weren't too wild and actually enjoyed playing at the shop, which eased her worries. Sprawled on the couch like a corpse, Lucas was the victim of yet another one of Lily's early morning wake-up calls, his arm dangling limply toward the floor. "If you're tired, you should just sleep in. You didn't have to make me wake you," Lily said, sitting beside him and gently stroking his cheek. "Because I love you," Lucas mumbled, half asleep. He wasn't sure if the words had actually come out, but he vaguely felt Lily kiss him. Just as he was about to drift off again, Caleb tiptoed over and poked his shoulder. "What is it?" Lucas forced his eyes open, gazing at his foolish little child. The boy's face was lit with excitement, and Lucas braced himself for whatever new scheme was afoot. "Dad, look at this." Caleb's small hand opened like a flower, and crawling on his palm was a huge black spider. It seemed to be moving. Holy! A second ago, Lucas had been dozing. Now he shot off the couch, as if electrocuted. "Honey, Dottie, get over here." Caleb jumped, startled by his father's reaction. The spider fell to the floor, and Dottie, the cat, came flying to the rescue. She pounced, snagged it in her mouth, and gave it a couple of violent shakes. A true feline predator, an apex tiger in the living room jungle. Over the years, Lucas had outsourced all insect-related problems to either Lily or Dottie. This was the biggest bug he'd ever seen in a house, but Dottie was an experienced professional. The cat chewed for a moment, then squinted proudly. See? She was the true head of this household. As she preened, her expression suddenly went slack. The texture was off. She spat the big spider out and pawed at it, only to discover it was made of rubber. "It's fake," Caleb explained, stunned. "I was going to use it to scare Mom." He had only come over to discuss his battle plan with his dad, not expecting to accidentally wound his own commander. "Mommy is very easily scared, you know that?" Lucas was now sitting upright on the couch, having resumed his patriarchal dignity as if he hadn't just sprung up like a startled fish. "What would you have done if you'd frightened her?" "I'm sorry." Caleb wanted to ask if it wasn't his dad who'd been scared, but he just wrung his hands and apologized, his sincerity absolute. Lily, who had been about to call the boys for breakfast, let out a soft laugh. She crouched down and poked the toy. She wouldn't have been scared. She might have been timid, but she had never once been afraid of bugs. Lucas, on the other hand, feared nothing else. "Where did you get this thing?" she asked gently. "One of the other kids gave it to me." Lucas looked at Caleb, a mixture of annoyance and amusement on his face. He made a mental note to find an excuse to ground him sooner or later. Unfortunately, neither he nor Lily had the heart for it. That was a job for a professional like his own mother, Emily. As he was thinking, Lily's hand gently stroked his hair. There, it's okay. Don't be scared." Lucas gently pushed her hand away and shot her a stern look. Was this goofball trying to console him like a child? She was definitely taking advantage of the situation. "It reminds me of the first time you came with me to see my dad," she said, her eyes softening as her voice grew gentle. "You jumped up just like that when you saw the bug in my hand. Let's just forget that ever happened." "Thank you," Lucas grumbled, his mood souring. "Why bring up something from so many years ago? Why haven't I ever met Grandpa?" Stella, who had been silent the whole time, tilted her head and asked suddenly. Lily's clear, beautiful eyes showed no sadness, only a familiar, watery tenderness. "Grandpa is always watching over us from heaven. Now let's go eat." Lucas breathed a silent sigh of relief. The kids weren't dumb. It was only a matter of time before they asked. He just hadn't expected this dork to handle it so calmly, without even needing him for comfort. A small smile touched his lips. He said nothing, simply picking Stella up and carrying her to the dining table. "Has Daddy forgiven me?" Caleb whispered, looking up at his mom. Lily smiled faintly. "You're in trouble. Your dad holds a grudge." "How bad a grudge?" She mused for a moment. "If you get grounded for no reason a few years from now, it's probably because of this. But I don't think he'll spank you. Your dad had a lot of ways of getting revenge." Lily considered telling the story of how Lucas had once scared Aaron so badly she couldn't stand up, but decided against it. She had to maintain her children's godmother's image. Caleb's face tightened. "So what do I do?" "Go beg your dad for forgiveness," Lily said with a grin, pointing her son down a well-trodden path. As much as she hated to admit it, she was an expert at begging him for things. Dad, please forgive me, Caleb said, gently shaking Lucas's arm. I really know I was wrong. Okay, I forgive you, Lucas agreed easily, but Caleb felt like something was off. Suddenly, he saw his dad extend a pinky finger toward Stella, and inexplicably, Stella hooked her own pinky around his. The two of them hadn't said a single word. A terrible premonition bloomed in Caleb's chest. He felt as if the two of them had just struck some dreadful, secret pact. The winter sun was a late riser. By the time the family finished breakfast, the sky had yet to fully brighten. Dressed and ready to go, Stella turned back to Dottie and scooped the cat into her arms. Want to come visit Dad's office for a bit? Lucas asked at the door, struck by a sudden idea. The kids were old enough to understand now. It was time to show them who the real boss of the family was. Unfortunately, Stella thought for a moment and slowly shook her head. Lucas grimaced. Why was it so hard to show off in front of his own kids? It was infuriating. It felt like studying hard all day, deciding to play a video game for a little while before dinner, and then having your parents walk in and lecture you for always slacking off, refusing to listen to any explanation. The family of 5 arrived at the coffee shop and flipped the sign to open. Lucas leaned lazily against a wall, watching his human cubs scribble on blank sheets of paper. Children were mirrors of their parents. Thanks to Lily's influence, the two little ones were a bit quieter than other kids when they had nothing to do. Caleb had just been begging to help, and it took a lot of coaxing from Lily to get him back to his drawing. Stella, she was more like him. She hadn't moved from her spot since they arrived. A total couch potato in the making. What are you drawing? Lucas asked, looking at the A4 paper in front of Caleb. It was an oval with a trapezoid attached to the back. He recognized it. A certain island nation would recognize it, too. An atomic bomb. He just wondered if they'd shouted holy when they first saw it. But why was this one blue? A whale, Caleb said with deep seriousness. Sorry, son. Your dad's imagination is just lacking. Lucas twitched a smile, sneakily taking a picture of Caleb's whale. He'd save it for when the boy was older. They say kids these days have their embarrassing moments preserved in high definition. I was thinking too small. His kids' embarrassing moments would be in 4K. What else could you expect when her father loved playing with a DSLR, and her mother loved indulging him by buying them? He figured once Caleb was a little older, he'd stop scribbling on paper and start simulating grand historical battles and world wars. The kind where one cannon blast wipes out an entire army of stick figures. Lily sat at the counter, sketching while she waited for her employees to arrive. Aaron was the first one in, still on the phone, arguing with Chloe about a new character's art design as she helped tidy up. The shop was still quiet, and a cold wind howled outside, carrying a winter chill. Once the sky fully brightened, the morning rush began. Office workers on their way to work would stop in for a quick bite or grab something to go. Fortunately, Lily and Aaron had hired help in advance, so it wasn't too hectic. The pastry chef was a woman in her late 20s, and the two servers were university students working part-time. Both students were art majors. Lucas suspected Aaron was scouting them, planning to bring them over to Polaris Interactive as soon as they graduated from their work-study program here. Mommy works so hard to make money, Caleb said suddenly, looking up from his drawing at Lily, who was sketching at the counter. Lucas, son, I'm glad you can say that, but I really don't like your tone. All facts aside, do I not work hard? The two little ones never saw him when he was constantly thinking about the company's operations. Lily, however, knew his mind was always tired, but the sly little dork never explained that to the kids. He must have learned that from someone. Daddy works hard too, Stella said in her soft, milky voice. But she didn't even look up as she said it. She was already a master of placating people at her young age. You really don't have to humor me. What a pair of little monsters. His wife was so much better. Lucas decided to disown his children for a few minutes and sat down next to Lily to look at the financial reports. Her accounting degree hadn't gone to waste. She handled all the bookkeeping and statements herself. This coffee shop actually makes money, Lucas said after a moment, genuinely shocked. It wasn't exactly raking it in, but the profit was respectable. Lily's cheeks puffed out. What's that supposed to mean? I work very hard. By the end of next year, I'll have earned back all the money our family put into it. She'd known from the start that Lucas had only helped her set it up to make her happy, but hearing him say it out loud still stung a little. She grumbled to herself. Lucas smiled faintly. His eyes caught one of the servers walking past in her uniform. It was a black and white maid outfit, but the design was modest. The skirt wasn't excessively short, falling to about her knees. At least it was something you could wear in public. He'd bet anything that Aaron had initially designed something far more revealing, and Lily had refused to make her employees uncomfortable, toning it down to its current version. Did you and Aaron design these maid outfits? They're pretty cute. Lily nodded gently. MHM, they just arrived today. Don't they look good? I have one too. Then why are you? Lucas swallowed the rest of his sentence. Why aren't you wearing it? A good thing too. If he saw his wife wearing that, he'd have to gouge out the eyes of anyone who looked at her. No, he had to tell Lily not to wear that kind of thing to shop. Seeing him cut himself off, Lily couldn't help but smile. She knew he'd react this way. If she wore a maid outfit in the shop, Lucas would probably die of jealousy. When it came to being possessive and petty, the two of them were two peas in a pod. She rested her hands on his shoulders, leaned in close to his ear, and whispered conspiratorially, "Don't worry. I'll only ever wear it for you." Her warm breath tickled his ear as she added, like she was coaxing a child, "When we get home tonight, okay?" Lucas froze, his heart skipping a beat. When he came to his senses, his grin was stretching from ear to ear. Maintaining a straight face in front of this dork was a truly impossible task. That evening, Lucas dropped his wife and kids at home, waved goodbye, and headed back out. I won't be home for dinner tonight. Even though all he wanted was to see Lily in that maid outfit, he had a dinner he couldn't miss. It was organized by Ryan Brooks. It's been almost 5 years, right? Did you miss your dad? Before Lucas could even sit down, Ryan was raising his eyebrows at him. The punk was a lot more outgoing than he used to be, but Lucas couldn't bring himself to be happy about it. The more mature Ryan seemed now, the harder his life must have been when he first eloped. You really came back? Lucas studied him for a moment. In college, Ryan had always worn square-frame glasses that made him look like a nerdy high school kid. He had changed the most out of all of them. If Lucas had run into him on the street, he wouldn't have recognized him. Now, Ryan still had a buzz cut, but he'd filled out. He had a bit of stubble on his chin, and he'd swapped his old glasses for a half-rimmed pair, giving him the air of a steady, mature man. Stunned by how handsome your old man's gotten? Ryan said with a smirk. I'd recognize you even if you were a pile of ashes, Lucas shot back. You begged me for help back then, and said you'd treat me to 2 all-you-can-eat seafood buffets. It's been almost 8 years, and you still haven't paid up. Seeing the BMW key fob on the table, Lucas didn't ask how he was doing. Guys had that kind of understanding. Ryan wouldn't be showing off in front of him, the founder of Polaris Interactive. If he did, Lucas would go out and buy a sports car the very next day. What about you? Using the student union as an excuse to sneak off to the drama club for private meetings with your wife. Ryan couldn't believe Lucas still remembered. Wasn't that worth 2 seafood buffets? Lucas started to pull out his phone. You want to bring up the past? Fine. I'll just tell your wife about that time you spent hundreds of dollars taking another girl out for sushi. Whoa, don't. We're bros, man. Who's your bro? How many times have you even talked to me these last few years? Ryan quickly grabbed his hand. I was afraid I'd miss you guys too much. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. He and Lucas hadn't seen each other in 5 years. Shouldn't they be misty-eyed, just staring at each other in silence? What was this? They were bickering just like they used to. The tears he'd been holding back were completely gone. Who was having private meetings? I have plenty of data. Give me the details. Jason, arriving late, quickly pulled Leo Jenkins into a seat. Little kids shouldn't ask so many questions. Jason suddenly smiled. We should have brought the wives and kids. That would have been fun. Ryan waved his hand. Mine couldn't make it. She's pregnant. Jason was the first to react. Whoa, boy or girl? He'd figured that if Ryan ever came back, it would be when his career was stable and they had a kid. That mother-in-law of his would find herself powerless. She could either accept it gracefully, or the family of 3 would just keep living their lives elsewhere, leaving her to grow old alone in Seattle. Ryan shook his head. I asked if it was a boy, but the doctor wouldn't say. They just said it doesn't matter if it's a boy or girl, and I figured they were right, so I didn't ask again. Lucas snorted. They already told you. It's a girl. He hadn't asked when Lily was pregnant, but he'd done his research so he wouldn't miss any hints from the doctor. Ryan blinked, then slapped his thigh. Holy crap, I just got it. Lucas didn't say anything, just rested his chin on the back of his hand and shot a look at the other 2. All girls. You 2 are pretty good at this. Are you preparing them all for my son? You son of a... Jason was fuming. He didn't know what it was. His daughter, Claire, took after her mother. Cool and reserved even at a young age. When he took her to the park, she'd ignore any other kids who came up to her. But for some reason, she loved playing with Caleb Carter. He couldn't figure it out. Damn it, they were all just a bunch of little kids who hadn't even hit puberty. What was so special about Caleb? Besides being better looking, more mature, knowing how to take care of his older and younger sisters, and having a gentle personality just like his parents. What else did he have? Huh? What else? Absolutely nothing. Jason gritted his teeth. Was your childhood sweetheart as much of a pushover as my daughter is? Lucas thought for a moment, then gave him a perfectly innocent smile. Nope. Sometimes the urge to commit murder is just a fleeting impulse. Jason was furious. He rolled up his sleeves, ready to give Lucas a fresh taste of fatherly love. The guy's kids were practically grown, but he was still as infuriating as ever. I can't discipline Caleb, but I can sure as hell discipline you. They're just little kids who like playing together. What can you tell from that? Lucas said, calmly taking a bite of food with a faint smile. Ryan nodded in agreement. He was confused. You never used to be like this. How did having a daughter turn you into such a simp? Little kids don't know any better. When he was young, he not only declared he was going to marry some older girl, but he'd also spend his days debating whether to go to Harvard or Yale. Thinking back on it now, he felt so shameless. You'll understand when you have a daughter, Jason said, portioning out the beers. He purposefully slammed the bottom of the bottle on the table when he set one in front of Lucas. Ryan pushed up his glasses. That's why I think sons are better. At least they're easier to raise, and you don't have to worry about some punk stealing them away. You've got a point, Lucas agreed earnestly. I feel like my son is the easiest to handle. What do you know? Daughters are definitely better. Every day I come home and hear my little girl call me daddy. Man, my heart just melts. Lucas nodded at Jason, continuing to agree. You've also got a point. Girls are definitely cuter. The argument came to a dead stop. An incredibly awkward silence fell over the table. Jason and Ryan looked at each other. Then their gazes simultaneously landed on Lucas. No wonder this guy was flip-flopping. They'd almost forgotten the bastard had twins, a boy and a girl. I'm gonna beat him up. Are you stopping me this time? Jason asked. Before he could finish, Ryan was already on his feet. Damn it. Let's throw him into Puget Sound. He knows how to swim anyway. A man has his pride. Begging for mercy and calling them dad was out of the question. But seeing that the two of them were serious, Lucas finally caved and called each of them bro. Discretion is the better part of valor. After the chaotic scuffle, the three of them returned from the railing to find that Leo had already downed 3 beers. Jason nudged Lucas with his elbow. Can this guy drink you under the table? If he can drink me under the table, he can drink you under the table. Thanks. Since when are you my equal? Leo just smiled and waved his hand. Don't argue. I don't usually drink, but when it comes to tolerance, nobody here can beat me. Lucas couldn't help but feel like Leo was saying, I'm not targeting anyone in particular, but everyone here is trash. Whoever waves the white flag first has to sit at the kids' table next time we go out, Lucas said coolly after sitting down. It was like in college when everyone in the dorm knew their skill level, but still had to have a few one-on-one matches to establish the gaming hierarchy. Today, he was going to teach Jason and Leo a lesson. What kind of threat is that? How about this? Whoever passes out first has to film a video holding their driver's license, officially admitting they're inferior to the other 3. Deal. Jason slapped the table. Back in school, these two were so polite when he brought them food. Now, they were just a couple of rebellious sons. Lucas froze. He'd seen videos like that. Someone holds up their ID and says, I, John Doe, hereby officially admit that I suck at League of Legends / Street Fighter / basketball, and that I was a fool for ever challenging Jane Doe. The humiliation was devastating. If you made a video like that, you'd never live it down. In any future argument, the other person would just pull out the video, and you'd be instantly silenced. A barely perceptible smile touched Leo's lips. He had clearly accepted the terms. This doesn't really have anything to do with me. Can I sit this one out? Ryan asked weakly. Seeing the amused and mocking glares from the other 3, he retracted his words. A group of men approaching 30, still acting as childish as they did in college. But it was only at times like this. Late into the night, for men were completely wasted. In the end, no winner was declared. Lucas, who never let himself get drunk, had made a rare exception. A phone on the table suddenly rang. Leo fumbled around for a moment before finally picking up his phone, which had been in the same spot all night. Seeing the caller was his mom, he chuckled. Watch. She's definitely going to say if I don't find a girlfriend, I can't come home for the holidays. The others, seeing he wasn't going to take the call elsewhere, quieted down cooperatively. Hello, Mom. The holidays are almost here. When are you coming back? Your aunt set you up with someone. I looked at her profile. She seems nice. I really can't. The company's at a critical stage right now. I don't have time to date. Good grief, Lucas thought. How is Polaris at a critical stage every single year? Is every year our most promising year? What is this, the LCS? Leo finished speaking and laid his phone flat on the table, then covered his ears with both hands. The voice on the other end predictably grew more intense, so much so that the phone vibrated on the table. Do you know how old you are this year? You're 26. Your cousin is 2 years younger than you, and he's having a baby this year. Every time I go to a family event, people ask me why you're making so much money but don't have a girlfriend. The relatives are all whispering behind my back, wondering if there's something wrong with you. How am I supposed to face them? Your father said so too. You either bring a girlfriend home for the holidays, or you don't come back at all. The tirade from the other end went on for a while before she hung up, not giving Leo a chance to reply. She's just saying that. If I really didn't go back, they'd be even madder, Leo explained with a shrug. You've been wasting away for 5 or 6 years, and you still won't make a move, Jason said, letting out a long sigh. Seriously, Erin's situation is a bit unique. I suggest you either try asking her out or move on to another girl. Lucas stayed silent. He knew that even if Leo asked, Erin would say no. Leo was stuck. He knew he didn't have the ability to pull Erin out of her hesitation, so all he could do was stay by her side, silently waiting, showing her through his actions that she could take her time. If he himself had been just a little more foolish, he might have been just as helpless with Lily. Leo shook his head gently and walked over to the edge of the water. With everyone watching, he leaned on the railing, staring at the night view of Puget Sound, silent for a long time. Then, suddenly, he shouted, I am completely devoted to Erin Thompson. The shout seemed to echo for a long time. Leo smiled, relieved, as if nothing had happened. When the sun rose tomorrow, he would still be that workaholic lunatic in everyone's eyes, or maybe that coward who was too scared to confess. But he would also still be the only one willing to protect Erin in a way that wouldn't make her uncomfortable. All those other jerks who saw how hesitant and resistant she was to dating but still pursued her, they were all trash. The restaurant's tables were set up right by the water, and naturally, everyone's gaze turned toward them. Lucas grimaced and quickly apologized on Leo's behalf. Sorry about that. My friend here has a few screws loose. So sorry, so sorry. I'll make sure he takes his medication in a bit. After saying that, he quickly dragged Leo back. The sudden movement made his stomach and head churn, and it took him a moment to recover. Hey, let's wrap this up soon. I think I'm going to be sick, Lucas said softly. He couldn't take it anymore. 10 of Lily's rocket head butts wouldn't have made him this dizzy. Then let's call this one a draw for us bros. Any objections? Jason couldn't suppress the grin on his face. He'd barely held on this long. Half a glass more, and he would have puked on the spot. Ryan was already passed out on the table, motionless. I'll get the check, Lucas said. With these boys, there was no need for that whole song and dance of sneaking off to the bathroom to pay. Their friendship was beyond that. The corpse-like Ryan showed a flicker of life, slowly raising his right hand. We haven't seen each other in so long. It's on me. Jason crossed his legs and smirked. What's there to argue about? Since the three of us are married, let's decide this the married man way. What do you mean? Lucas suddenly had a bad feeling. Jason slowly placed his phone on the table, a playful look in his eyes. We just sit here. Whoever's wife calls first pays the bill. Deal. No one spoke, including Jason. They all instinctively glanced at the time. It was 10:44 p.m. For a married man, this was an extremely dangerous time. It wouldn't be strange at all if someone's phone rang in the next second. Lucas felt his phone suddenly turn into a ticking time bomb. Logically, Lily was almost certainly sitting on the couch waiting for him to come home, debating whether or not to call. He was probably going to lose. But a man has to defend his strange honor. The one thing a man can't stand is being told he's not good enough. It's like with many web novel authors. If someone says their writing is bad, they might not get angry. They might even reflect on it. But if someone says their chapters are short, they will absolutely lose their minds. So, after a pause, he said softly, deal. With the exception of Leo, the three men placed their phones on the table. They all held their breath, staring intently at the screens. They had planned to just chat while waiting, but now no one was in the mood. Tonight, they would determine not just a winner, but who lived and who died. Time ticked by. After what felt like an eternity, just as Lucas was about to relax, a phone on the table lit up. 2 of them. He leaned over to look. Only his phone remained dark. Jason calmly said to Ryan, "You lose." "Why?" Ryan was baffled. Wasn't it obviously a tie? "This isn't a call from my wife." The leg Jason had crossed was bouncing up and down, unable to contain his glee. Ryan craned his neck to see. The caller ID read at NT. "Damn it, I'll go get the check." Although Ryan had planned to pay anyway, after this whole ordeal, he was not happy about it. Lucas glanced at Jason, a growing suspicion in his mind, putting aside whether AT&T would even call a customer. At this hour? While Jason was distracted, Lucas sneakily tapped the answer button. A clear female voice immediately came through the speaker. "Jason Miller, do you have any idea what time it is? Just find somewhere else to sleep tonight. I'm locking the door." It was, without a doubt, Vanessa's voice. Jason, who had been gloating a moment ago, froze solid. Noticing the other 3 staring at him, he smiled faintly and scratched his cheek with his index finger, suddenly embarrassed. He had quietly changed Vanessa's contact name before suggesting the game, not thinking he'd get caught. Damn it. Lucas, you bastard. Would kill you not to be so sharp. Seeing the unfriendly looks on their faces, he quickly changed the subject. We never decided what happens in a tie. Do we split it? You cheated, so you should lose. As the two of them argued, Lucas leaned back in his chair and breathed a sigh of relief. He wasn't exactly happy, but no matter what, Master Carter had won. He was about to text Lily to say he was heading back when Jason gently nudged his arm. Is that your wife? What nonsense is he? Lucas turned his head and saw a green and white electric scooter pull up under a streetlight, held steady by a pair of slender, beautiful long legs. The stark, bright light acted like a spotlight in the night, illuminating the girl's already cool and delicate features, making her even more striking. The night wind gently lifted her long, raven hair, which fell to her waist, creating a sweet and moving picture. Sensing his gaze, she smiled and waved. It really was his wife. Before he knew it, Lucas was standing in front of her. What are you doing here? He asked softly. This dork was terrified of the dark. I came to pick you up, Lily said, looking down and fiddling with her fingers. It's late, I was worried. You know it's late too? Lucas gently pinched her cheek. It was red and cool to the touch from the cold. It's so dark and cold, and you dare to come out on the scooter by yourself? I know I was wrong. Lily's apology was swift and sincere. Then she slowly looked up at him, her eyes wide, and asked in a tiny voice, Can I do it again next time? Lucas couldn't help but laugh. He leaned in to kiss her, but she gently stopped him. You mind the smell of alcohol? Lily shook her head slowly. I don't mind at all, but there are so many people here. Can we wait until we get home? A moment later, Lucas walked up to the counter to pay, a triumphant smile on his face. Looks like it's on me. He waved a smug goodbye to the other three, then, in full view of everyone, hopped onto the back of the scooter, wrapped his arms around Lily's slender waist, and let her drive him away into the night. The remaining men stared at each other in silence. Even though they hadn't spent a dime, Jason and Ryan felt worse than if they'd eaten something terrible. Have those two always been this disgustingly cute, even when they first started dating? Ryan finally broke the silence. It's been so many years since they got married, and they haven't changed a bit. Why did you drink so much? Lily's voice was gentle, without a hint of blame. Lucas watched her long hair fly in the wind and smiled. I was in a good mood today. I'm in a good mood. Oh yeah? What good deed did the kids do this time? She shook her head. Of course it's because you're happy. Lucas paused, turning his gaze to the side, silently watching the streetlights fly past them. He didn't know if it was because of the alcohol, but a warm feeling lingered in his chest, refusing to fade. Life was pretty great, just a little too cold. If he was this cold sitting on the back, Lily, who was blocking the wind up front, must be even colder. This is why I call you a dork. It's freezing, and you still came out to get me. Are you cold? The girl in front of him gently shook her head. Lucas thought for a moment, then reached up to cover her reddening ears. Maybe you should get your driver's license. There are a lot of cars that are perfect for girls to drive, he said softly. We could buy you a pretty one. I am too much of a dork. I might not be able to learn. Lily giggled sweetly. And I really love this scooter. You helped me pick it out. She would never forget how Lucas, with hundreds of thousands of dollars in his bank account at the time, had haggled with the owner for nearly half an hour, trying every trick in the book just to get a free air fryer worth a little over $200, all to make her happy. After a moment of silence, Lucas smirked. Do you remember what you promised me at the shop today? What man could resist a maid outfit? Today was destined to be a day of Lily begging for mercy. But you've been drinking. Damn it, Ryan Brooks. If you're going to elope, you should have just stayed gone. Why did you have to come back? Another winter break. Early in the morning, Lily, as usual, was up and dressed in the living room. After leaving breakfast for the three lazy bums still in bed, she was ready to head to the shop. But a glance at the couch made her stop short. Lucas was awake even earlier than she was. That had to be a first. Seeing her reaction, Lucas couldn't help but give her a faint smile. Don't go to the shop today. Let's go out, just the two of us. Lily hesitated for less than 2 seconds before nodding gently. Okay, I'll let the staff know. No need. I already asked Aaron to cover for you. The girl silently took 2 steps back. She suddenly suspected he was up to something. It was just like that time they went to the movies for the first time. Before Lucas had even asked her, he had already told her mom, Sophia, and even bought the tickets. How he managed to get the best seats on a major date night, she still didn't know. Lucas was in his early 30s now. His stomach hadn't started to bulge like other middle-aged men, but it was certainly full of devious plans. Ivy already had 2 kids with you. What else could you possibly want to trick me into? She stammered. Am I that kind of person? Lucas said, exasperated. Just tell me, do you want to go or not? Yes. Lily's mouth and body were both honest. She bit her lip, her gaze unintentionally drifting toward the kids' rooms. Without the kids? They start school again soon. We already took them out last week, Master Carter replied. He had no such intentions. Can you even call a date if you bring the kids? Then what about Caleb and Stella? Your mom watched them last time. Today, my mom can watch them for a day. Soon, the two little ones were summoned to the living room. Caleb was his usual energetic self, while Stella was rubbing her sleepy eyes, clutching a small teddy bear, looking completely unenthusiastic about everything. Lucas cleared his throat. You two have been very well behaved lately, so Dad has decided to take you out. You could decide where you want to go. Really? Caleb's eyes widened. When are we leaving? As soon as Grandma and Grandpa get here. Stella seemed to have figured something out. She blinked blankly. Aren't Mommy and Daddy coming? Lucas sighed, his face a mask of regret. Mommy and I have to work. He then tilted his chin at Lily. Right, honey? Lily hesitated for a long moment before finally squeezing out a barely audible unction. Lucas knew she couldn't bear to lie to the kids. She suspected he was doing this on purpose. She thought that even though the kids were almost in elementary school, they'd still be as gullible as when they were little. But unexpectedly, Stella suddenly looked up, her bright eyes fixed on her mother. Seeing Lily guiltily look away, Lucas sighed and turned his gaze back to the pensive Stella. You little brat, are you using your mother as a lie detector? His parents were more than willing to watch their grandchildren. Not long after Lucas called, the two of them arrived, full of excitement. Emily, even though her grandson was almost in elementary school, still had her hair dyed black and looked vibrant. Robert didn't bother with hair dye. His temples were streaked with gray, and with age, his calm demeanor had only deepened. Dad, Mom, can you watch the kids for a day? I have to take Lily to a contract meeting, Lucas said, raising the hand that was holding Lily's and giving his parents a cheeky grin. Still trying to fool both the young and the old? Emily couldn't resist swatting him. She was already here, and the boy still wouldn't tell the truth. The term deceiving superiors and subordinates was perfectly embodied by her son. Not at all. Lily and I really have work to do, Lucas said earnestly. The kids might be eavesdropping. He had to commit to the act. Being a dad required a constant battle of wits with your own children. He shouldn't have made them so smart. Emily couldn't be bothered with his nonsense and impatiently waved them toward the door. She had been through this herself. Did this brat really think he could fool her? Amusing. Lucas led Lily out the door, then suddenly turned back. Mom, if they misbehave, you can discipline them, just like you used to with me. He was trying to outsource the job to a professional. He didn't have the heart to do it himself. If national defense could be outsourced, why not child rearing? Emily made a grasping motion with her hand, and Robert, with a placid expression, placed his belt in her palm. The old matriarch then gave him a live demonstration of a true summoning. I'll have to get the feel for it on you first, she said with an all-knowing look. After all, your dad used to have the same idea. Lucas grabbed Lily and ran, leaving behind the girl's cute and flustered gasp. That afternoon, the two of them emerged from the movie theater. They were walking hand in hand, their closeness not at all out of place among the younger couples around them. In fact, Lily, approaching 30, stood out more than the girls next to her. Time had been exceptionally kind to her, reluctant to leave even the faintest trace on her face. They had caught the premiere of the film adaptation of Project Hail Mary. What did this prove? That if you live long enough, some wishes do come true. I'm so lucky, Lucas said suddenly. Lily blinked, confused. Why do you say that all of a sudden? Because I have a wife who is willing to take an interest in my hobbies. You're the same way. Otherwise, you wouldn't have. Lily stopped mid-sentence. She suddenly turned, grabbed his shoulders, and buried her head in his chest, clinging to him tightly, as if trying to hide inside his body. He'd seen this scene in TV shows before, the cliched plot where the young couple on a date runs into one of their parents. What's wrong? He asked, curious, as he felt the girl trembling slightly in his arms. Lily kept her head down, her voice shaking. Don't turn around. Oh, our kids are right in front of us. She spoke too late. A person's first instinct when faced with something strange is to look around like a deer in the headlights. Lucas turned his head and saw Emily holding a child's hand in each of hers, walking straight toward them. What are they doing here? 2 seconds later, Lucas remembered that the theater next door was showing a PAW Patrol movie. Damn it, that franchise was still going. Were the problems in Adventure Bay really that hard to solve? He decided to retract his earlier judgment of the cliché. Fine, it wasn't a cliché anymore. He'd never seen this happen, never even imagined such an absurd development. Before the three of them could spot him, Lucas quickly turned his head to the side, pretending he hadn't seen anything. But it was too late. Caleb's eyes were always sharp. Otherwise, he wouldn't be like a heat-seeking missile when looking for Natalie. A gasp came from behind him, and then Caleb was running over, grabbing his pant leg and shouting excitedly, "Daddy." At the sound, Lily buried her face even deeper, playing the ostrich, too embarrassed to face the world. Emily saw this and didn't know whether to laugh or be angry. She had already guessed the two had snuck out for a date, but she never expected to actually run into them. "A contract meeting?" Emily said, a smile that didn't reach her eyes on her face. The atmosphere suddenly became awkward. After a moment, Lily finally dared to emerge from his embrace. She looked down, brushing a stray strand of hair from her face, too ashamed to speak. Lucas scratched his cheek. It's done. "Daddy, Mommy, what are you doing here?" Stella asked, looking up at them with her innocent eyes. "Vouve." Lily's hands twisted together nervously. She stammered, unable to get a word out, her ears turning redder by the second. This was so mortifying. After sneaking out with Lucas for so many years, to think they'd be caught by their own kids. Lucas suddenly felt like they were a young couple caught by their parents. Even though they were both 30, it still felt that way. Other kids were afraid of being caught by their parents. Why were he and Lily afraid of being caught by their children? A long silence. Lucas cleared his throat and said, without batting an eye, "Mommy and Daddy are looking for aliens." These situations required Master Carter's expertise. The two little ones' eyes widened. Aliens! Caleb and Stella were at the peak of their curious phase. The word immediately made them forget what they were originally going to ask. "Did you find any?" Caleb asked eagerly, his little hands clenched into fists. "No." Stella looked at the popcorn crumb lingering at the corner of her mom's mouth. Something didn't feel right. "Daddy, did you secretly take Mommy out to play? How could you slander someone's good name like that?" Lucas's expression remained unchanged. Seeing their dad's calm and steady demeanor, the two little ones, after much hesitation, decided to believe him. Even though Mommy's cheeks were flushed, she had often been teased into blushing by Daddy for as long as they could remember, so it wasn't a reliable clue. Getting caught ditching her kids for a date made Lily feel incredibly guilty. She was used to it, but being caught red-handed by the children themselves was a different story. Although Emily was still willing to watch the kids, Lily felt too awkward and took over. "Should we go home?" Lily asked softly, looking at the two cubs happily eating their ice cream. She had thought Lucas was up to something, but it turned out he really just wanted to take her out. She was already very happy today. Lucas slowly shook his head, a small smile playing on his lips. "Not yet. I'm taking you to play something else." Stella immediately picked up on the key phrase, "taking you," but she didn't care. She continued to eat her ice cream with a smile. It didn't matter if Daddy wanted to bring her and her brother along. As long as they tagged along quietly, there would be fun to be had. "What else are we playing?" "Just wandering around the mall." A while later, the family of four walked into a store filled with claw machines. The plush toys inside were all exquisitely made, of all different types, so the price was a little higher, $5 a try. "Daddy, I want to play too," Stella said, shaking his arm as Lucas walked up to a machine. "Be good. Let me show you how it's done first." "You're a grown man, still competing with the kids," Lily said, but she made no move to stop him. She watched his focused profile, a barely perceptible smile on her lips. He was 30, but still acted like a child. They talked about the 7-year itch, but when she looked at Lucas now, her heart still burned just as fiercely. Lost in thought, she was suddenly brought back by Stella's whining. "Daddy, you've already tried 4 times. It's our turn." Lucas looked up, seemingly lost in thought, then said suddenly, "How about we let Mommy try?" The two children obediently nodded. They knew that as soon as they started whining, Mommy would give in to them. Lily snapped back to reality and quickly waved her hands. I can't do it. I've already tried 4 times. It's a waste of money for me to try again. Why don't you give it a shot?" Lucas said nonchalantly, shaking the tokens in his hand. "We've already paid for them anyway." "Okay, then." The girl mustered her courage and took a few steps forward. Caleb pointed to his favorite whale, Plushie. "Go, Mommy, go. I want that one." Lily clenched her fists, suddenly full of determination. "Oh, okay." Lucas watched the two kids excitedly crowd around Lily and saw how tense and focused she was, her whole body rigid. He couldn't help but break into a silly grin. "I originally set this up to make your mother happy. You two little rascals are just getting lucky. Some people might not know that the probability of winning at these things is just like the pity system in many mobile games. It's all manually controlled. The owner presets a number of attempts, after which the machine rewards the player with a super strong grip that guarantees a win. Without the pity system, the probability of winning is practically zero. How many tries it takes to get a guaranteed win depends entirely on the owner's conscience. A truly scummy design. But it had its uses. A little arrangement with the owner beforehand didn't cost much, and using a little trick like this to make a girl happy was a great deal. He had already put in 4 attempts, which meant this next one was a guaranteed win. Just as he was thinking this, he heard the children cheer. Lily came over to him excitedly, gently shaking the whale plushie in her hand, her eyes crinkling with joy. I got on the first try. Anyone with hands could do that. My turn. Go, Daddy. The 2 little ones cheered in unison. I didn't play well that time. Let me try again. Stella pouted. Daddy, you've already had 4 turns. Fine, fine, Lucas waved his hand. Which one of you wants to go? How about rock, paper, scissors? Caleb smiled at Stella. Let my sister go first. She's been waiting a long time. And so, Lucas always played during the setup attempts, and naturally, never won a single prize. Caleb, on the other hand, managed to grab one with the last token, earning him the admiration of Lily and Stella for a good while. Lily and the 2 children each held a plushie, all of them beaming with happiness. Lucas looked at the 3 of them, still blissfully unaware of his trick, and couldn't help but smile. Ah, it was so easy to make these fools happy. A few little tricks, and the whole family was overjoyed. Now that's what it means to be the head of the household. You guys are so lucky, he said, deliberately sounding sour. The words were barely out of his mouth when Lily slowly walked up to him. What's wrong? The girl held her plushie up in front of him, peeking her head out from behind the little bear. You can have mine, she whispered. I'm not a little kid who gets upset just because he can't win a prize. Are you trying to console a child, you dork? By the time the family of 4 left the mall, it was nearly evening. As they walked along the street, a cool breeze brushed against their faces. Lucas looked up. The clouds were thick and heavy. It looked like it was going to snow. Lily and the 2 siblings were each hugging a plush toy, faint smiles on their faces. His dork was 28 this year, but holding a stuffed animal so timidly, she still looked like a young girl. The kind who would be very easy to trick into coming home with you. He instinctively reached out, his fingertips brushing a few stray strands of hair from her face, his hand lingering on her forehead for a long moment. What is it? Lily blinked, looking at him curiously. Lucas smiled back. My wife is definitely more beautiful without bangs. It's been years since I cut them, the girl said softly, but she instinctively tightened her grip on his arm. Hey, I think that park is going to be torn down in the spring. Want to go see it? It's just a few steps from the mall. Anyway, Lucas said suddenly. It was in an older part of the city, and after more than 20 years, it would be strange if it wasn't demolished. Places that hold memories are like people. They too will gradually fade with time. If they didn't go see it now, they never would again. Lily froze for a moment, then nodded emphatically. The snow came quickly. By the time the 2 of them, with kids in tow, reached the familiar yet strange park, a thin layer had already covered the ground like a veil of gauze. White snowflakes drifted down, landing in Lily's dark hair. I'm going to play on a slide, Caleb shouted suddenly. Me too. Seeing the first snow of the year, the siblings took off running like wild. Be careful, Lucas called after them. Watching the 2 kids run around, he suddenly felt a sense of disorientation. How had time passed so quickly? He could still clearly remember the timid little Lily crouching here, her eyes full of fear and helplessness. Now, their own children were almost the age they had been when they first met. Lucas paused for a moment, then walked a few steps ahead, stopped, and turned, extending his right hand to Lily, just like he had when they were kids. He still remembered the words he had left unsaid that day. Hi there. My name is Lucas, he said softly, his gaze gentle as water, a smile on his lips. Still like a boy. Lucas saw the snowflakes drift into the girl's clear, jewel-like eyes, which gradually blurred and shimmered. He realized they were her tears. The girl stood frozen for a long time. At some point, Lily wiped her eyes and slowly placed her hand in his. Her voice was still just as soft and timid, but now it held a touch of joy. Hi, my name is Lily. Time is a relentless tide, rising and falling, but there are some things it can never wash away. Last year, on the night of the festival, the flower market lights were bright as day. It wasn't until he started elementary school that Caleb realized his childhood was a little different from others. Apparently, not everyone grew up with 2 girls, and not everyone had both an older sister and younger sister. His older sister wasn't technically his, but she was even nicer to him than his actual sister. Why? He had pondered this question from preschool all the way to 4th grade, and still hadn't found an answer. So, my older sister is my real sister, and my younger sister isn't my real sister, Caleb muttered to himself, pinching his chin, completely convinced by his deduction. Walking beside him, Lucas clutched his chest and took a few deep breaths, then tilted his chin at Stella. "Stella, get him." The little girl had inherited her mother's cool demeanor when she was quiet. She simply nodded, efficiently handed her backpack to him, tied up her hair, and cracked her knuckles. The whole sequence was smooth and practiced. A true daddy's little girl. Caleb gulped, taking 2 nervous steps back. "And I used my allowance to buy you and Natalie Jell-O cups." He pulled the hidden cups from his pocket, his eyes full of reproach. "I didn't even save one for myself." Stella bit her lip. She knew her brother never lied. Even though he was incredibly annoying sometimes, he was always very good to her and Natalie. She was suddenly conflicted, until a cold, emotionless voice, like a demon's whisper, came from behind her. "Whatever snacks Caleb gives you, Daddy will double." Caleb stared at his deadpan father as if he'd seen a ghost. He looked down. Stella had already rolled up the sleeves of her school uniform. "Just bear with it for a second, bro. It'll be over quickly," she said, her voice full of sympathy. "Caleb? Question mark. Sympathy my foot. Can you at least wipe that smirk off your face before you say that? I told you this sister isn't my real one." Before he could even voice his thoughts, he saw Stella's ponytail swish as she darted toward him like a rabbit. He had no choice but to turn and run. As for why he didn't fight back, you might as well ask a historical figure on the execution block why he didn't just beat up the executioner. When Natalie was around, she'd stop Stella, but when she wasn't, all he could do was run for his life. Lucas watched his 2 kids chase each other around a tree and chuckled. Now that they were a bit older, their personalities seemed to have swapped. Caleb, who used to be so quiet and well-behaved, was now as mischievous as he and Emma had been as kids. Stella, on the other hand, was becoming more reserved, carrying herself with a certain girlish grace. But deep down, that little girl had a dark heart. He could tell from that. "Just bear with it for a second." "Dad, it's done," Stella said a moment later, returning to his side and rubbing her forehead. "Nice work." Lucas gave her a thumbs up. For the past few years, he'd actually been quite worried about how to raise them. He really didn't want to resort to spanking unless absolutely necessary, and Lily was even less likely to. Her gentle nature made it impossible for her to even be stern. But Caleb was constantly displaying a kind of pure, unadulterated foolishness, always surprising him with something new. He couldn't just send the kid to his grandma's every time he misbehaved, could he? But that was a worry of the past. Thankfully, Stella was exceptionally sharp, in more ways than one. He dropped the 2 cubs off at the school gate, which was already crowded with other parents. Most were still in elementary school, so the parents were still worried about them going alone. "Godfather." Just as he was thinking, a little girl with long hair called out to him softly. Lucas looked around and saw it was just Natalie. "You came to school by yourself again? Mom and Dad have to work. I told them not to bring me." Natalie nodded. "I'm in 4th grade now, anyway. I'm a big kid. It was her idea. As long as it didn't involve her education, her parents fought a lot less. I'll pick you up when I drop these 2 off from now on." "It's not far," Lucas said gently. The elementary school was close to his house, about a 10-minute walk, which was a good way to get the kids to walk more. Looking back, this house had been an incredibly good purchase. He wondered if that, too, had been part of Lily's dorky master plan. He was almost afraid to think about it. "You don't have to. I know the way." Lucas nodded slightly and didn't press the issue. Even though Natalie was a year older than the other kids in her grade, she always had a maturity beyond her years. They say children from poor families grow up fast, but the same is true for independent kids. The school bell rang, playing Claire de Lune, and the gates slowly opened. Lucas watched the tide of children flood in, patted his kids on the head, and turned to leave. Stella watched her dad's retreating back, then suddenly remembered something. She rummaged through her backpack for a moment, then pulled out a soft ruler and handed it to a confused Natalie. "Natalie, this is a royal warrant from my dad," she whispered. "From now on, you can discipline my brother when he misbehaves. Act first, ask questions later." It was actually just an extra one Lucas had bought for Natalie when he got them for his own kids. She was just faking a royal decree. Caleb wouldn't know if their dad had actually said that or not, and his current reaction proved it. Natalie took the ruler, flicked it a couple of times, then slowly drew it across the palm of her other hand like a sword. A faint smile touched her lips. "Natalie." Caleb started to get scared. Natalie didn't smile that often. When his sister hit him, at least it was just a rocket head, but that hurt. But Natalie had been taking Taekwondo since they were little. If she really let loose, he'd be begging someone to make sure he survived until the ambulance arrived. But to his surprise, Natalie just smiled faintly, glanced at Stella's back as she walked through the gate, and then discreetly slipped the royal warrant into Caleb's hand. Caleb was overjoyed. See, he was right. His older sister was his real sister. "I bought Jell-O cups for you and Stella," he said, and when the security guard wasn't looking, he stuffed the rest of the bag into Natalie's backpack. This bag of Jell-O was expensive. It had used up his entire week's allowance. But as long as his sister and Natalie were happy, it was worth it. Mom had said to be a gentle person. Natalie tried to suppress her smile, giving him a cool look. "Did you finish your English homework this time? I'm collecting yours first." Maybe she wasn't that much his real sister. Dad was right. We're all born alone. Finally got those two little monsters to school. Lucas grumbled as he walked back in the coffee shop, just in time to see Leo leaving. "Not staying a bit longer?" he asked with a deliberately raised eyebrow. Leo had been coming here more and more often these past 2 years. When things were slow at the office, he'd even stay and help out for free. What was it with his coffee shop? Maybe he should just move Polaris Interactive here. The new version of the map isn't debugged yet. I have to go back and supervise. Winning a girl's heart is like boiling a frog. You are on the verge of enlightenment, and your master is very pleased. Lucas completely ignored him, continuing his own train of thought. Leo hesitated for a long time before finally asking in a small voice, "Lucas, are you sure it wasn't Lily who boiled you?" "Shut up. Emma was also there today." "Hey, bro." Lucas nodded at her. He was starting to think this coffee shop wasn't a bad idea after all. As everyone got older and had their own lives, this was the one place they could all still meet up from time to time, like a hub. "What are you two studying?" he asked, curious, as he saw Lily sitting next to Emma. He sidled up to them. The table was covered in a chaotic pile of books, many of them written entirely in English, dense with letters that looked like ants. At first glance, he couldn't make sense of them. On closer inspection, well, he still couldn't. Even with his good memory, it had been years since he graduated. He'd long since returned what he could to his professors. Not to mention many of the words were technical terms. "You've already finished your master's. Why are you still going for more?" He couldn't help but ask. He never thought his sister would become a PhD. Emma scoffed. "Is it not obvious? It's because I don't want to get a job." Nice. An absurd reason, but coming from Emma, it sounded surprisingly logical. "You can't understand it either, right?" Lily looked at him excitedly. If she was the only one who couldn't understand, it would be so embarrassing, and Lucas would definitely tease her for being a dork. "Nope," Lucas said honestly. Emma looked even more smug, patting Lily on the shoulder. "Sis, go get a cup of coffee for the future, highest-educated member of our family." Okay, Lily didn't mind being ordered around by Emma, and stood up with a smile. But just as she was about to go, Lucas grabbed her arm. He looked at his sister, annoyed. "You dare order your sister-in-law around? Getting a big head, are we?" Emma smiled back. "Are you going to argue with that?" "See? I told you. There's a generation gap when a PhD student tries to talk to a bachelor's graduate." Lucas sighed, pulling a long face. "But I have money. My education is better than yours. Even if you get 2 PhDs, you won't have as much money as me. I'm going to kill you." Emma flew into a rage and lunged at him. Lucas held her head at arm's length to keep her from getting close. "Do you know how old you are? Still acting like a child all the time. Caleb is turning out just like you." He seriously suspected that Caleb's current mischievousness was because he spent too much time with Emma. "Why don't you just say he takes after me? I'm just a scapegoat, anyway." Emma looked back down at her book. Staring at the page full of English, she suddenly paused. It was thanks to her sister-in-law's tutoring back then that she'd managed to pass her high school English exams. Now, she was a PhD student, studying things Lily couldn't even understand. "Sis," she said suddenly, "what is it?" "My English is better than yours now," Emma said, her eyes turning red. Lily smiled just as gently as ever. "Of course. You're the highest-educated person in our family, after all." That night, the couple was curled up on the couch watching a movie. Caleb, with his sister in tow, tiptoed over to them. "Dad, can we have some more allowance?" he whispered. Lucas thought for a moment, then sighed. "You know our family situation. Your mother worked from dawn till dusk, either painting or running the coffee shop, just to support the 3 of us." Stella panicked. "Dad, I only misunderstood that one time when I was little and said you were unemployed. You've held that grudge for years. If you want allowance, earn it yourselves. When I was a kid, I used to work for your grandparents to earn my allowance." "Oh, go to your homework," Lily said, slowly getting up and leading the 2 kids to the dining table. She had been so caught up being cute with Lucas that she'd let the kids slack off for a while. After finishing the movie alone, Lucas closed the app and saw that the new game Jason had spearheaded was trending online. The Polaris interactive pirate ship was sailing smoother than ever. But as for leading the industry, even if he had the ability, he had no interest. Life was too short. He wanted to invest his time in the things he truly cherished. For example, Lucas looked up at Lily and the 2 children doing their homework beside her. Lily happened to meet his gaze. She picked up a worksheet and ran over. Look, our son. Your son's essay. Her eyes crinkled as she struggled to hold back her laughter. Silly goose. Is it that funny? Lucas laughed along with her and took the paper from her hand. Essay title, My Father. He suddenly had a bad feeling. The essay was too long, so he only read the part Lily was pointing at. My father is an ordinary yet great man, and he is very good to our whole family. That line was decent enough. I still remember a snowy night from my childhood. The snowflakes drifted down, silently covering the earth in a new blanket of cotton. For an elementary schooler, it was pretty good. That night, my father had a fever of 107 degrees, but he still snuck out to buy me my favorite fruit cup. Lucas stopped reading. He silently put down the paper, his face expressionless. Lily covered her mouth with both hands, snuggling into his embrace and giggling uncontrollably. Dad, my brother didn't finish his English homework today. Stella quickly added more fuel to the fire. Natalie had to wait for him to finish, and she got yelled at by the teacher because she couldn't collect the homework on time. Lucas felt a throbbing in his temples. His grandfather was a professor, his aunt was a PhD, yet this kid was trying to slack off on his homework every day, even though he and Emma had been the same way as kids. If you're not a hypocrite, are you even a parent? At least Stella just liked to slack off. Caleb was beyond slacking off. Drastic measures were required. Dad, why don't you just ground me? Caleb said, walking over to him silently. Lucas smiled and patted his head. How could Dad bear to hit you? Seeing that his father had no intention of letting him off, he turned his pleading gaze to his mother. Lily gave him a helpless look. It was over. It was all over. Maybe I should retire, too, Jason said suddenly, after a long moment of contemplation, looking at Vanessa, who was putting on a face mask. Vanessa glanced at her reflection and hummed. You've said that so many times, but I've never seen you actually decide. I'll go put Natalie to bed. Then we could go to bed, too, she said. Jason cleared his throat and shrank into the couch. Today be good. Come to bed. Natalie had finished her homework long ago and was now working on the advanced math problems Vanessa had given her. The tip of her pen scratched against the paper, making a faint, rustling sound. The sound was barely audible, but it made her feel inexplicably irritable. Even the way she pulled a textbook from her backpack was rough. She dumped the contents of her bag out and suddenly saw the Jell-O cups Caleb had given her that day. She carefully placed them back in her drawer, not having eaten a single one. Dad, why are they crying just from saying goodbye? It's not like they'll never see each other again, Stella asked, watching the two people in the movie wave and wipe away tears. Because every time you see someone, it's one less time you'll see them, not one more. Is that hard to understand? The two little ones blinked blankly, not quite getting it. It's too early. They won't understand, Lily said softly. She was too embarrassed to admit it had taken her a moment to figure it out, too. I know they don't understand, but when they run into something in the future, maybe they'll remember this and then they'll get it. This was part of learning. It's only when you're far from home that you understand the meaning of raising my head to gaze at the bright moon. I lower it and think of home. It's only when your father is old that you truly understand the meaning of a movie like It's a Wonderful Life. Stella said no more, just lowered her head in thought. Dad was always saying things she didn't understand, but once she thought about them, they made a lot of sense. She was still thinking about it the next day during her first class. She and her brother were family. They would never be apart, just like Dad and Aunt Emma. But Natalie was different. Right now, she only had to walk a few steps to play with her. But in the future, Natalie might go to a different school or work in a different city, the kind you have to take a long train ride to get to, and they really wouldn't see each other. She didn't want that. They had been together for as long as she could remember. Wasn't there a way for her and Natalie to be best friends forever? Watching her brother and sister in front of her, checking their answers, Stella rested her chin on her hand. A brilliant idea flashed in her little head. A grand and long-term plan began to form in her heart. June arrived, and the weather grew warmer. Erin wasn't busy today, so she went to the coffee shop early. Lily stayed home, waiting to take the kids to school with Lucas. What's so good about touching my legs? Lily looked up at Lucas, her toes gently brushing against his stomach. After all these years of marriage, this man still wasn't tired of it. Pervert. Umph. The girl silently cursed him, but the corners of her mouth couldn't help but curve upwards. Dottie, dozing on a coffee table, glanced at the clingy couple, then squinted and looked away, resuming her nap. These two-legged creatures had been like this from the moment they moved in together, through marriage and children, for over a decade now. And she had been there to witness it all. It was a good thing she had found them back then. Where did she find them again? She couldn't seem to remember, but that wasn't important. Lucas held the financial report in one hand and caressed the girl's fair, slender legs with the other, multitasking perfectly. This dork had great legs to begin with, slender calves, thighs with just the right amount of softness. Everything was just perfect. It would be a waste not to touch them more. A terrible, terrible waste. Don't let the kids see, Lily said worriedly. It didn't feel right. What time is it? Those two won't wake up unless it's a life or death situation. Caleb and Stella had definitely inherited that from him. They slept as if they'd died of exhaustion in a past life, always tired. If either of them wakes up now, I'll eat my... Just as he spoke, Caleb's bedroom door burst open. Lucas whipped his head around. The little brat was up unusually early for some reason, and was already dressed with his backpack on. Something was wrong. Lily jumped, quickly trying to pull her legs off Lucas's lap, only to be held firmly in place. Lucas calmly started rubbing her ankle, massaging it as he asked gently, "Why are you up so early?" Her husband's brain really did work faster. Compared to the two of them, who had been caught in a compromising position, Caleb looked more like the one who'd been caught red-handed. Seeing Lucas's incredibly calm expression, Caleb grew even more nervous. He wrung his hands and looked up. "Dad, Mom, starting today, I'm going to school by myself." Knowing his dad was the tough one, he kept his eyes on Lily the entire time he spoke. Lily was at a loss. She instinctively looked to Lucas, silently begging for help. The kids used her as a lie detector all the time. How could she be the head of the household? And Lucas was always telling the kids she had the highest status in the family. She was clearly just a puppet empress. "Okay, then you can go by yourself." Seeing Lucas give a barely perceptible nod, Lily finally spoke, her tone calm and mature. "Then I'm leaving. You haven't had break." Before Lily could finish, Caleb had already dashed out the door. The girl blinked blankly. Lucas stared at the entryway, a thoughtful expression on his face. Unless the kid had lost his mind, who would be this eager to go to school? As he was thinking, Lily, who had been on the couch, peered toward the door. Seeing Caleb was really gone, she threw herself into Lucas's arms. Caleb went to school by himself. She rested her head on his lap, rolling back and forth excitedly. "Kids grow up," Lucas said with a smile, stroking her head. She was a mother now, but still so adorably dorky. "Mom, why are you rolling around on the couch?" A young, cool voice suddenly filled the living room. Lily froze once again. "Your mom has a stomachache," Lucas said, looking up at Stella, his expression still calm. Stella had completely inherited his usual demeanor. Her expression was placid, and she seemed uninterested in most things, even more so than him. Her gaze was lazy, as if she held an equal amount of disdain for everyone. But what was with these two brats today? Waking up one after the other, and always interrupting them at the most intimate moments. Stella nodded skeptically. "Where's my brother?" Lily quickly sat up on the couch, nervously tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "He said he was going to school by himself today." "Stella, do you want to go by yourself?" "I want Mommy and Daddy to take me." "Then go eat breakfast first. Mommy will go get changed." The moment Lily walked into the bedroom, Stella sidled up to Lucas and gestured for him to lean in. Though he was confused about what this little girl was up to, Lucas obediently complied. "My brother isn't going by himself. Natalie asked him to walk to school with her yesterday." Lucas snorted. He knew it. This little brat had gotten his mother all excited for nothing. Seeing her dad's lip curl, Stella quickly offered a helpful suggestion. "Dad, ground him." Even though she had a long-term plan, the fact that those two were going to school without her was very annoying. When her brother and sister were being thoughtless, they needed to be disciplined. "But your brother is just going to school with his sister. He didn't do anything wrong. Why should Daddy ground him?" Lucas asked, looking sincerely at his little helper. "For what reason?" Stella's little mind worked quickly. The next time my brother gets into trouble secretly, I'll tell you right away." In just a few sentences, the father-daughter duo had decided Caleb's fate. Stella was happy now. She walked, hands behind her back, into her parents' bedroom. She looked curiously at the closet, then asked, "Mom, you have so many pretty clothes in your closet. How come I've never seen you wear them?" A Chong Sam-style dress, a sailor uniform, and all sorts of cosplay outfits. Most of them were a bit, well, not suitable for wearing out. Lily, who had just finished changing, quickly shut the closet door. "I never wear those kind of clothes. They're just for art reference." Stella didn't say anything, just tilted her head and stared into her eyes. Lily felt a prickle of unease under her gaze and instinctively looked away. "Why are you staring at Mommy like that?" "No reason," Stella said, walking away with a grin, having clearly gotten her answer. Lily was crushed. She leaned weakly against the wall, her gaze becoming unfocused. She felt like her daughter had seen right through her. She was such a failure as a mother. Why did Lucas have to make the kids so smart? After breakfast, The sun was already high in the sky. It was a beautiful day. Stella skipped out of the building, ready to have her parents hold her hands and experience the joy of being an only child. But when she turned around, she saw that Lucas and Lily's hands were already clasped together, as if by instinct. Her little face immediately fell. Damn, Mom. She had often heard girls in her class crying about their parents fighting for various reasons. Her family, that seemed to have never happened. Her parents were so lovey-dovey that it made her feel like she and her brother were just an accident. Now, she didn't have to feel that way. It was definitely true. At first, Lily was confused by her daughter's expression. But when she followed her gaze, she quickly let go of Lucas's hand and waved awkwardly at Stella, beckoning her to come between them. I'm sorry, sweetie. Come on over, Stella. Stella huffed and puffed her way over, taking a hand from each of them, finally satisfied. The early June morning breeze was refreshing, rustling through the leaves along with the sunlight. Lucas casually plucked a leaf, watching the passing traffic, when he suddenly noticed Stella's fingers trying to weave between his own. This made the daughter simp in him very happy. What made you want to hold Dad's hand? I learned it these past couple of days. You said I should be a good student who loves to learn. Something about the phrase these past couple of days felt off to Lucas. He asked gently, Did you learn it from Mommy and me? Lily was confused. She tilted her head. Why were the father and daughter suddenly talking nonsense? Stella just offered a standard-issue smile. So, if she didn't learn it from me and Lily, then the answer is written all over her face. You'll get grounded if you learn the wrong things, Master Carter said with a frown. I won't learn the wrong things. Stella's bright eyes blinked a couple of times as she looked up with a well-behaved expression. Dad, I'm not like my brother. I'm always very good. Lucas, who had been confused a moment ago, now completely understood why his little girl had suddenly wanted to hold his hand today. A kind smile spread across his face as he tested the waters. Who's better at school, your brother or your sister? Natalie is, Stella said directly, understanding what Lucas was really asking. She learns everything very quickly. Even faster than me. Oh boy. The smile on Lucas's face gradually vanished. Lily finally couldn't take it anymore and quickly explained, Natalie's grades have always been a little better than Caleb's. You already knew that. Ever since the kid started first grade, the top spot in the class had basically been a rotation between Stella and Natalie. As for Caleb, his performance depended on the bribe. He usually floated in the top 20, but if you promised to take him on a trip, he was guaranteed to make the top 5. What is with these two today? Lily thought, talking in circles and still managing to have a conversation. To her surprise, Lucas turned his head and smiled at her, his eyes full of affection. Lily was even more confused. Back at the coffee shop, Lucas settled into a seat at the counter, casually observing the customers. Lily had already gone to the back to help in the kitchen. Even though she was the owner, this dork rarely sat at the counter, preferring to let her employees run the front. Erin, a partner at Polaris, also seemed to be enjoying herself here. Maybe this was what they called experiencing life. Lucas, Image, which souped-up Civic do you think looks better? Jason, dude, you're in your 30s and you're just now thinking of becoming a burnout? Isn't it a little late? Lucas put down his phone and sighed with a smile. Jason wasn't as smart as his own daughter. He chuckled, but then the smile slowly froze on his face. Something about this whole development felt very wrong. A line of dialogue suddenly echoed in his mind. Hey, old man, is it safe for my son to park his souped-up Civic outside your house? Damn it, was Natalie going to be the one saying that to him someday? That would be awful. Startled from his deathbed, he sits up. The old man was me all along. A little while later, Lily came out from the kitchen with a dessert and saw Lucas sitting at the counter, frozen like a statue, staring blankly at one spot. He only got this expression when he was very seriously considering something. What are you spacing out about? She asked softly, placing a hand on his shoulder. I'm trying to think of a good reason to ground our son. Lily was startled. Caleb has been so good lately. Why would you ground him? He's annoying me, adding stress to his old man's life at such a young age. Now he would have to keep a close eye on him all the time. Lucas grimaced. Thankfully, the kid was still a clueless little pipsqueak, at an age where they'd hold hands and call each other husband and wife while playing house. He didn't have to worry about anything serious. Kids are like that. Maybe when they're a little older, or if they go to different schools, they'll forget all about it. All right. Lily finally remembered why she had come to find Lucas. She held an egg tart to his mouth. Here, eat this. Lucas took a bite and chewed. You're feeding me like a little kid. It makes me look silly. Is it good? He nodded gently. Lily's cheeks puffed out. You say everything I feed you is good. Everything you feed me is good. The words had barely left his mouth when Lily pressed her index finger to his lips. She huffed, If you do that, I'll never figure out your favorite flavor. Then what's the point of me learning to bake? Isn't running this coffee shop the point? When other people like it, I just make money. That's all. Lily pouted, her clear, beautiful eyes looking straight at him, a little hurt. But if you like it, it makes me happy for a long, long time. Lucas and Lily have always been so sweet. Leo sat at a table near the door, speaking softly. The stench of love. Erin leaned against the table, disdainfully sticking her tongue out at her best friend. This egg tart is for you. Payment for helping us move things these past few days. She tilted her head at Leo. Leo looked down at the object in front of him, which looked more like a charcoal briquette, and froze. You're telling me this is an egg tart? I made it. Erin twirled a strand of hair around her finger, feigning shyness. I just started learning from Lily, so I don't have much experience yet. Before she could finish, Leo had already popped it into his mouth, faster than the cookie monster devouring a cookie. He had barely chewed twice before his entire face puckered up as if he'd eaten a lemon. He was about to run to the bathroom to spit it out when a wounded voice came from behind him. You wouldn't want my whole day's effort to go to waste, would you? Today, Leo learned that the voice of the person you like can also sound like a demon's whisper. He forced himself to swallow the entire tart, fighting back the urge to vomit as he turned to look at her. You made it like this on purpose. Erin just hummed. Leo scratched his head. I haven't done anything to annoy you lately. Erin's lips curved into a triumphant smirk as she turned to leave. That's for scaring me with that ghost mask. Leo stared at Erin's retreating back, then shouted in exasperation. That was at least 10 years ago.